Chapter 1143. The news about Fu Onlai spread like wildfire among the commoners. Those who knew the inside story all secretly applauded. Chu Qingyan did not think that her big ice block would be able to easily make him lose his footing in the capital without wasting a single soldier or breaking any of his limbs. Although this move was not proper, it was simply satisfying to give him a taste of his own medicine. Not only did it help her vent her anger, it also helped to take revenge for those girls who were ruined by Fu Onlai. Therefore, there was no need to reason with evil people. However, for Chu Qingyan and Xiao Lai Qi, there was another very exciting news today. That was the wood spirit had returned from the Fu Li mountain range. After not seeing him for half a year, Chu Qingyan missed him very much, especially her father. When he saw him today, he gave him a bear hug and then clamored for the wood spirit to make a lot of dolls for him. The wood spirit was so scared that he immediately went into his master's study and still hadn't come out. It was simply laughable. After lunch, Big Ice Block had something to discuss with the wood spirit. Chu Qingyan went to the guest room alone. She just sat down when Hua Xioli arrived. Why does it seem like you're more attentive than me when it comes to entertaining the Southern Blue Princess? Chu Qingyan looked at her friend, who was in high spirits, and couldn't help but tease. Hearing this, Hua Xioli sat down beside her and propped up her chin. There's no other way. People like me who come from a commoner background rarely get to see a foreign princess, so I took this opportunity to broaden my horizons. Moreover, having more friends means more opportunities. Who knows, we might even be able to promote our products internationally. Don't you think so? Sometimes, she really admired her business brain. However, she had to admit that her friend had outstanding talent in business. Then, Big Boss, is everything ready? She smiled and teased. Don't worry, they're all top-quality goods. They won't embarrass you. After Hua Xiao finished speaking, she clapped her hands and a servant came up with a tray. On the tray were two exquisite boxes. Chu Qingyan took them and looked at them. Toner and powder. Not bad, not bad. I believe these two new products will sell well in the capital. Of course, which of the products you designed isn't top-notch? Hua Xiao praised him as if his mouth was smeared with honey. Chu Qingyan couldn't help laughing. But at this time, someone sent a message saying that the Southern Blue Princess had arrived. She immediately gave the order to welcome him in. Before inviting Pang Zhijing to the residence, she had already discussed it with the Big Ice Cube. Although the Big Ice Cube didn't approve of her having a close relationship with Pang Zhijing, after the incident with Fu Onlai, the Big Ice Cube no longer opposed it. In addition, the rumors were spreading everywhere. After finding out that the mastermind was Xiao Ho, she discussed it with the Big Ice Cube to see which side the Southern Blue Princess was on through this invitation. If it was a friend, then everyone would be happy. If it was an enemy, then after thanking each other and returning the favor, they would go their separate ways. As soon as Pang Zhijing entered the door, she couldn't take her eyes off the decorations in the residence. Her eyes were filled with envy. When she came yesterday, her thoughts were different from today. She came in a hurry and left in a hurry, so she didn't pay attention. Today, she could finally enjoy the place where a goddess lived. After walking for a while, the group arrived at the guest hall. As soon as she stepped into the hall, she saw the person sitting at the head of the table stand up to welcome her. She was radiant and beautiful. She was indeed her goddess. Seeing Pang Zhijing's eyes staring at her, without hiding her admiration, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. She greeted, "It's our honor that the princess was invited here today." As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, Pang Zhijing immediately put away her drooling expression and said seriously, "The king consort of England is too polite. It's my honor to be invited here." Hua Xioli stood at the side and glanced. When the two finished their conversation, she couldn't help but interrupt. "All right, you don't have to be so courteous. My ears are buzzing. Come, Princess Nansong. I am Hua Xioli, Qingyan's friend and also a victim of yesterday's incident. We invited you here today to thank you for lending a helping hand when you saw injustice. This is a small token of our appreciation. Please don't be polite and accept it." Hua Xioli was a merchant and a good judge of character. She knew that Pang Zhijing wasn't the kind of person who put on airs, so she straightforwardly explained her intentions. Moreover, she naturally offered a gift of thanks. Her words were watertight, making it impossible for others to refuse. Only then did Pang Zhijing see Hua Xiaoli. She realized that birds of a feather flock together. The women by her goddess side were all peerless beauties. Moreover, they had straightforward personalities. Pang Zhijing liked them very much, so she didn't stand on ceremony and asked the maid to put it away. "Aren't you going to open it and take a look?" Seeing that she ordered the maid to accept it, Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. Pang Zhijing laughed mischievously. "When we go back, I'll take a good look. It's rare for us to come out, so we shouldn't waste time on it. We should cherish it." Chu Qingyan and Hua Xiaoli looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with admiration for Pang Zhijing. A woman's topic would never be separated from clothes, food, and beautiful scenery. The three of them chatted for more than 2 hours. Each of them wanted to continue, as if they regretted not having met earlier. However, at this time, because something happened in the shop, Hua Xiaoli had to go out to deal with it. Before she left, she reluctantly invited Pang Zhijing to her shop to play when she had time. Pang Zhijing readily agreed. After Hua Xiaoli left, only the two of them were left in the hall. Pang Zhijing looked around. The two maids beside her kept staring at her. There were some words in her heart that she didn't know how to say to her goddess. Just as she was secretly troubled, Chu Qingyan spoke. A grape was transplanted in the courtyard. "I wonder if Princess would be interested in taking a look?" Pang Zhijing's eyes lit up when she heard that. She immediately nodded. Okay. Chu Qingyan smiled slightly. She stood up and ordered Jasper and Xining beside her. "You don't need to follow me. Go and prepare some pastries." Pang Zhijing also followed suit and said to the two maids. Although the two maids wanted to follow, they could only reluctantly agree because Chu Qingyan was present. Pang Zhijing walked beside Chu Qingyan. She turned her head to look at her exquisite side profile. She was puzzled. "Did you deliberately send those servants away?" Chu Qingyan turned her eyes and chuckled. "Didn't Princess have something to say to me? It's not good for you to speak with outsiders around, so I helped you to lead them away. You can actually tell that I have something to say to you?" Pang Zhijing was surprised. Chu Qingyan smiled, but didn't say anything. After Hua Xiaoli left, the little princess's eyes began to drift. Her eyes revealed anxiety, but because of the presence of the maids, she could only endure it. She couldn't stand it anymore, so she sent them away. "Princess, do you have any difficulties?" she asked. At this time, they had already walked to a secluded place in the garden. Hua Xiaoli's expression suddenly became serious. "Consort King of England, I have a request." Chapter 1144. Pang Zhijing's words were out of her expectations, but she still maintained her calm exterior. "Princess, please speak. If there is anything I can help with, I will definitely not refuse." Chu Qingyan gave her promise. With her goddess's words, Pang Zhijing felt that even if she could not achieve her goal, she was still very grateful. At this time, Chu Qingyan saw Pang Zhijing look around and then find a place to sit down. Then she pulled up her skirt to reveal a white protrusion. Chu Qingyan was still a bit confused. But at this time, she saw Pang Zhijing untie the cloth around her ankle from behind. After pulling away the cloth, an exquisite bell anklet was revealed. It really is a beautiful bell anklet. Chu Qingyan was not stingy with her praise. Hearing this, Pang Zhijing smiled bitterly. "It is beautiful, but it can't be untied." "What do you mean?" Chu Qingyan had a puzzled expression. For a moment, Pang Zhijing wanted to tell her the truth. But in Xiao Ho's plan, the targets were Xiao Su and her. She did not know how to say it. In the end, she chose to hide the truth. "Before I came to Sichuan, I received this bell anklet. I was very curious, so I put on. But later, when I wanted to take it off, I found that it needs a key to open. I really don't like this kind of bell that seems to be worn by cats or dogs. So I want to ask you to see if there is a reliable craftsman who can help me open this bell anklet." When she said this, she unconsciously carried a tone of attachment. In front of Chu Qingyan, she didn't know why she would develop a feeling of dependence. It was like the trust a younger sister had for her older sister. Chu Qingyin could feel from the subtle changes on her face that her words were not trustworthy. But she felt that she had something that was hard to say, so she pretended not to know and did not probe further. This is a coincidence. Our Wang Fu has a craftsman who is very good at opening locks. He came back today. I will have him take a look for you. She thought of the wood spirit. As she spoke, she called for a servant to pass on the message and have the wood spirit leave the study and come here. Pang Zhijing listened to her goddess's instructions and was very happy. Because the wood spirit had something important to discuss with the big ice cube, she didn't come over so quickly. At this time, they sat down in the courtyard and waited. Pang Zhijing looked at the gentlewoman in front of her and couldn't help but blurt out, "Consort King of England, I really envy you." Chu Qingyin asked in confusion, "What are you jealous of me for?" Pang Zhijing sighed softly. "I envy your freedom, your intelligence, and your beauty. I envy that you have such a devoted fiancé. You don't know how gloomy the King of England looked yesterday. It was as if he wanted to cut me into pieces. It's scary just thinking about it. But I can see that he really cares about you and is very sincere." Chu Qingyin was a little surprised. She actually heard such words from the mouth of a country's princess, and it was not pretentious at all. She could tell that it came from the heart. "Princess, you're also very good. Actually, in our hearts, there's always a kind of you. It's always better than us. You don't have to be too envious." Pang Zhijing nodded. "You're right, but I really envy you. Of course, there's only envy, no jealousy or hatred. When I first saw you, I felt that you looked very familiar, as if there was no sense of unfamiliarity. It didn't seem like it was the first time we met." Chu Qingyin tilted her head and smiled. "To be honest, I feel the same way. Perhaps this is what they call fate." Pang Zhijing was delighted to hear that. "Yes, it's fate. I didn't believe in fate before, but now I have no choice but to believe. Otherwise, she wouldn't have appeared in this era." At this point, she suddenly thought of something and the playful smile on her face faded. "Consort King of England, I have something to ask of you. No need to be so polite. Please ask." Chu Qingyin had already begun to get used to her playful and serious attitude. At this moment, she replied gently. Pang Zhijing took a deep breath, then opened her eyes and looked at her. She said word by word, "If you're in deep danger, saving your life is already an extravagant hope. Will you still pursue freedom?" Although she was a little surprised by her question, Chu Qingyin still gave her a definite answer after serious consideration. "Yes. I don't know if you've heard of this saying before. Life is precious, but love is even more valuable. If it's for freedom, both can be abandoned." These words sounded very familiar to Pang Zhijing, but she couldn't remember it for a while. She only felt that what she said was very reasonable and vaguely had an answer in her heart. At this moment, she met Chu Qingyin's curious gaze and immediately smiled mischievously. "Don't take it to heart. I'm just such a person who likes to let her imagination run wild." Looking at the person in front of her who was joking around, although Chu Qingyin felt strange, she didn't ask. Prying into other people's privacy wasn't her hobby. At this moment, Mu Ling arrived. "Little princess consort, do you need this subordinate for something?" Mu Ling asked curiously. Chu Qingyin smiled and explained the matter clearly. Then she pointed at Pang Zhijing. "This is the Southern Blue Princess. Help her see if you can undo the chain." Mu Ling nodded at Pang Zhijing and then said, "Excuse me." Then she looked at the chain on her ankle. "This?" Mu Ling revealed a surprised expression. "Is there a problem?" Chu Qingyin asked with a raised brow. Mu Ling turned to the two and said, "This bell chain isn't a normal chain. It's called the Exquisite Lock, also known as the Seven Orifices Exquisite Lock. It has 7 keyholes and requires 7 keys to open it. This 7 Orifices Exquisite Lock also has a compass. The direction that the compass points to is the location of the Exquisite Lock." Chu Qingyin was surprised. There was actually something like a locator in the ancient times. She couldn't help but admire the brains and intelligence of the ancient people. At the side, Pang Zhijing nodded in her heart. This craftsman was indeed amazing. No wonder he was recommended by the goddess. This 7 Orifices Exquisite Lock has been lost for nearly 100 years. I didn't expect it to appear on the princess. There's also a story about this exquisite lock. Mu Ling said, "Tell me about it." Chu Qingyan was attracted and couldn't help but ask. "Yes," the wood spirit slowly said. "The person who made this chain is a famous craftsman. Because his wife has a poor sense of direction and often gets lost, the craftsman spent 8 years to make this exquisite lock. The purpose is that he can find his wife anytime and anywhere. In the end, it was called a testimony of deep love. After it was passed down, it became a token of love." Chu Qingyan sighed. "It's really amazing. It's a romantic story." Although it was strange for Pang Zhijing to be chained with the exquisite lock, she had to admit that this story was very moving. When Pang Zhijing heard it, she felt that it was quite romantic. However, when it was used on her and Xiao Ho, it felt a little strange. Although the story is very beautiful, it's not convenient to wear it. "Can you help me unlock it?" Pang Zhijing anxiously asked. If this exquisite lock could be unlocked, then she could regain her freedom. Chapter 1145. As a fierce steed, Wood Spirit had long developed an air of arrogance by Xiao Su's side. Little Consort had only asked him to help look at Pang Zhijing's bell anklet and had no other orders. In addition, he was dissatisfied with Nan Song, so when Pang Zhijing made a request, he acted as if it had nothing to do with him and had no intention of responding. Chu Qingyan sensed that Pang Zhijing's mood was not right and was very anxious. She thought for a moment and turned to ask Wood Spirit, "Wood Spirit, do you have any ideas?" Now that the young princess had spoken, Mu Ling finally faced this problem seriously. However, his expression was a little troubled. This 7 apertures exquisite lock only has one original set of keys. It's very difficult to reconfigure it. Back then, in order to make this exquisite lock beautiful and become an exquisite piece of jewelry, he put a lot of effort into the 7 keyholes. As a result, other than the artisan himself, no one was able to open it. This was also to ensure his wife's safety. Chu Qingyan turned and, as expected, she saw Pang Zhijing's disappointed expression. She sighed softly. This craftsman made this exquisite lock for protection with ingenuity, but in the end, it became someone else's shackle. The former is romantic, the latter is dismal. Pang Zhijing pursed her lips. "Then what do I do? I can't wear this anklet for the rest of my life, right? It makes jingling sounds when it walks, just like a pet." Chu Qingyan snorted at this analogy. Pang Zhijing and Water Spirit gave her an aggrieved look. It was indeed a bit unkind to laugh when someone was in pain. Chu Qingyan retracted her smile and said to Wood Spirit, "If you're here to reconfigure it, how many days will it take?" Pang Zhijing, who was drawing circles in the corner, immediately widened her eyes. "Didn't you say it was difficult? Does this gentleman have a way?" Chu Qingyan looked at Wood Spirit with a smile. Just now, the Wood Spirit had only said that it was difficult to configure, not that it was impossible. Furthermore, with her understanding of the Wood Spirit, this jewel lock was not a problem for him. It was a challenge, and he loved to solve this kind of problem. She was not wrong. When he saw the jewel lock just now, his eyes burned with passion. Although it was only for a moment, she still caught it. Mu Ling rubbed the back of his head and laughed mischievously. It's still the little princess who understands this subordinate. Although it's difficult, it's not impossible. You just need to give this subordinate some time. Pang Zhijing's eyes lit up, and she immediately asked, "How many days do you need?" The Wood Spirit didn't even bother to answer her question. Chu Qingyan also noticed this and repeated Pang Zhijing's words. The Wood Spirit then replied, "Making the model of the key will only take 3 days. But the problem is that this exquisite lock is very sturdy. It needs to be polished into a key with a very hard material. Otherwise, once it is inserted, it will easily break inside. Then, it will be impossible to open this chain." This craftsman's mind is really meticulous. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but praise. Pang Zhijing, who was at the side, bit on a small handkerchief and cried. The Wood Spirit continued, "So, the most difficult part is to find this material. But coincidentally, this subordinate found a material in Lian City last year. It's very suitable. If we hurry and have someone send it over, It might take half a month. Chu Qingyan heard this and turned to look at the young girl beside her. It might take a while. Can you accept that? Pang Zhijing was very touched and nodded repeatedly. No problem. Chu Qingyan smiled at the wood spirit. All right, then I'll leave this matter to you. The wood spirit accepted the order. Then let this subordinate first make a copy of the keyhole. After speaking, he went to prepare the tools. Looking at the wood spirit's departing figure, Pang Zhijing revealed a look of adoration. Goddess, you're so amazing. You have so many talented people by your side. After speaking, she suddenly realized her slip of the tongue and immediately waved her hand to explain. I didn't mean anything else. I really like friends like you. Chu Qingyan looked at her girlish appearance and couldn't help but laugh. I also like little girls like you. Pang Zhijing rubbed her head embarrassedly and laughed foolishly. Consort of the King of England, if there's a chance in the future, I'll definitely make friends with you. After the wood spirit made a copy of the keyhole, and she sent someone to escort Pang Zhijing out of the residence, she repeatedly thought about Pang Zhijing's words. There seemed to be something wrong, but she couldn't put her finger on it. What a strange girl. After Pang Zhijing left the King of England's residence, she turned back to look at the long walkway with a faint melancholy expression. Now that she had an agreement with Xiao Ho to defeat Xiao Su, she couldn't be friends with her goddess. She had to wait until everything was settled and she broke away from Xiao Ho. Only then would she have the right to stand beside her goddess and beg for her forgiveness. Only then would she have the right to be her friend. With this thought in mind, she heaved a sigh of relief and jumped into the carriage. The bell on her feet rang crisply because of her movements. She sat down on the couch and lifted the corner of her skirt. Looking at the bell, she harumphed. Very soon, I'll take you down and let you be proud for a few more days. After saying that, she lowered the corner of her skirt and leaned against the wall of the carriage, closing her eyes to rest. The carriage traveled for a while and suddenly stopped. Pang Zhijing opened her eyes in confusion. At this time, someone outside the carriage said, "Princess, someone knocked over something in front. There's a traffic jam, and we need to wait for a while." She lifted the curtain and waved her hand to the attendant to indicate that there was no hurry. At this time, she looked out of the window. There were many shops on both sides of the carriage, and it was very bustling. She looked at them with great interest. I heard that the palace is going to hold a banquet tomorrow night. It will definitely be very lively. Yes, I'm afraid that we won't have the chance to enter the palace in this lifetime. I really want to go and take a look. The discussion drifted into her ears, and she was stunned. She had actually forgotten such an important matter. She remembered that Xiao Ho had told her that the Sichuan emperor would help her choose a marriage partner based on her choice at the palace banquet. What he meant was for her to choose Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan's gentle and beautiful face suddenly flashed in front of her eyes. She couldn't help but clench her fingers. How could she put her goddess in a difficult situation? Her goddess had helped her so much. How could she repay her kindness with enmity? She couldn't do such a thing. But on Xiao Ho's side, at this time, the maid outside the carriage said, "Princess, if you feel bored, you can open the gift that Miss Chu gave you to pass the time." Pang Zhijing's thoughts were interrupted by the maid. At this time, her gaze turned to the box placed on the small coffee table. She couldn't help but reach out to open it. She saw that there were 2 small boxes in bright yellow satin. She opened them one by one. Each of them contained a small porcelain bottle made of white jade. It was cold and comfortable to touch. Her anxious mood dissipated. She smiled and opened one of the small porcelain bottles. When she poured out a little liquid and put it to her nose to smell, her expression suddenly stiffened. How could it be? Chapter 1146. After sending Pang Zhijing off, Chu Qingyan walked towards her own courtyard. Once she entered the room, she saw the person sitting there. She couldn't help but raise her brows with a smile. "Why didn't anyone tell me that you were here? This should be used to my appearance." Xiao Su raised his brows at her. She couldn't help curling her lips. He spoke as if he was the owner of this place. But strictly speaking, the entire palace was his, so he didn't lack this courtyard. "Why did you come to my place?" She sat down across from him and naturally took the teacup he handed over. She took a sip to relieve the dryness in her throat. When that Southern Song princess came today, you were so busy that I couldn't even see your shadow. Even I don't have this kind of treatment. Although his words were calm, she felt that there was a hint of jealousy in them. Hey, 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 Big Ice Cube, the other party is a girl. What are you thinking? He really didn't differentiate between men and women when he was jealous. However, her heart was filled with happiness. What was going on here? Occupying your time, your person. Male or female, what's the difference? Xiao Su gave a snort. Good. You're right. Then wouldn't I have to follow you closely in the future before you're satisfied? She propped up her chin with one hand and tilted her head to tease him. Who would have thought that he would take it seriously? That's a good idea. You can't do that. She puffed up her cheeks in protest. This kind of Chu Qingyin, where was the dignified and virtuous person she was in front of Pang Zhijing? This was how she should be at her age, how she should be pampered. Xiao Su chuckled and rubbed her head. How was your talk with that Southern Song princess today? Seeing her return, she seemed to be quite happy, so he asked. He actually changed the topic. She glared at him and began to speak unhurriedly. She's pretty good. I still think she's a good girl. Nansong country invaded us before, and it's quite hateful, but that doesn't mean that everyone there is guilty of the most heinous crimes. Just like Xian, there are also evil people, but not all of them are good. You're even saying good things for her. Xiao Su wasn't targeting Pang Zhijing as a person, but he felt that his little fellow's attention had been diverted by someone else. His heart's possessiveness immediately came online. Chu Qingyin held back her laughter in her heart. The Big Ice Cube was too cute when he was jealous. It's true. After she finished speaking, her expression turned serious. But Big Ice Cube, I made a discovery today. Oh? What is it? Xiao Su was interested. Chu Qingyin immediately said, I think Princess Pang might be under someone's control. Xiao Su frowned. What do you mean? When she came to the prince's mansion today, I saw that she had a lot on her mind and sent everyone away. Only then did she dare to tell me about her request. That's one of the reasons. The second reason is that she has a chain on her leg. It looks very exquisite, but it's actually a tool that can be monitored. She wants me to ask someone to help her remove it. So to neutralize the above 2 points, I think that she's being controlled by someone else. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to me. After all, she's a princess. Chu Qingyin slowly explained her analysis. As Xiao Su listened, he slowly frowned. If what you said is true, then she came to Xishuan with a purpose. Or rather, the person behind her wants her to complete some kind of mission. She shook her head. I also don't know. But I feel that this girl's nature isn't bad. From yesterday's information, I can see that. My intuition tells me that she really wants my help. Xiao Su knew that she pitted this Pang Zhijing. It was rare to see her with friends, so he loved the house and its crow. He couldn't help but put his hand on the back of her hand and comforted her. I'll have Water Spirit pay close attention to this matter. But because there are too many people watching the Southern Heavens Envoy group, it won't be too fast to find out the news. Chu Qingyin nodded heavily. With the Big Ice Cube's words, she was relieved. The reason why she had such a strong desire to protect her was because today, that pair of water spirits' eyes revealed reliance and caution, which moved her heart. This matter was temporarily put to rest. That's right. Why did Mu Ling suddenly return to the capital? She was very curious about this matter. Xiao Su folded his hands on the table. Because of her words, his expression became slightly restrained. There are some situations in the mountains. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to explain clearly in the letter, so he made a trip here. The mountains he was referring to were the Fu Li mountain range. She nodded. Regarding that place, they indeed had to be cautious. Just as she was about to ask what had happened, Xining walked in with a smile and said that the kitchen had already prepared dinner. She asked if she wanted to bring it up. She nodded her head and forgot to continue asking. At this time, what she didn't know was that on the busy streets of the capital, there was a person who, because of her and the gift in her sleeve, fell into a state of shock, rage, and pleasant surprise. Pang Zhijing sniffed the sparkling liquid again and again in disbelief. Only in the end was she able to convince herself that this was a modern toner. This fragrance was too familiar. because she had an older sister who loved to dress her up. Her older sister's hobby was to dress her up in all kinds of ways. In the end, even with her eyes closed, she could still smell the fragrance, which brand, and what it was used for. What shocked her was, why would such a modern thing appear in ancient times? Then she thought that if she could transmigrate, so could others. Thus, she went berserk. In the end, she guessed that the transmigrator might be by her side. Goddess? In her sleeve? Or someone else? But no matter what, she suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. No matter if she was a good person or a bad person, she was still someone from the same world as her. Thus, she was pleasantly surprised. Soon, she opened another box and poured a little into her palm. It was talcum powder. Wow, this thing was too useful, especially in this hot summer. She became more and more excited. She wanted to immediately return to the King of England's residence and ask the goddess who made this thing. Could it be her? However, reality quickly knocked her down, because the bell on her ankle was ringing, warning her that she was still not free. She looked dejected. No, she had to get her freedom immediately. Tomorrow was the palace banquet. She didn't want to scheme against the King of England and the goddess with Xiao. Thus, she couldn't wait for half a month with the wood spirits. Then what should she do? She hugged the two boxes and fell into a daze. At the same time, the crowd dispersed and the carriage began to move. Her gaze followed the carriage and fell on the street outside. Suddenly, a shop entered her line of sight. A medicine shop. She blinked and suddenly sat up straight. She had an idea. She immediately shouted, "Stop the carriage." Chapter 1147. Creak. The carriage stopped at the sound. "Princess, is there something you need?" The attendant asked with a slight headache. Ever since this princess entered the Sichuan palace and left the Lord's watch, she had an endless stream of tricks to torment people. He didn't know what she was up to this time. This attendant's guess was correct. Pang Zhijing was indeed up to some tricks. At this time, Pang Zhijing lifted the curtain and jumped out of the carriage, ignoring the obstruction of others. "Princess, where are you going?" A group of guards immediately blocked her path. Pang Zhijing cursed inwardly. She was too impulsive just now and ran down without thinking clearly. How was she going to smooth things over? Seeing the princess's eyes darting around, everyone instantly felt bad. The princess was up to no good again. "Princess, let's go back." Before the attendant finished speaking, she was interrupted. "I'm not feeling well and want to buy some medicine." Pang Zhijing suddenly clutched her stomach with a painful expression and cried out in pain. Everyone's scalps tightened. The attendant hurriedly said, "Then let's hurry back to the relay station and have them send an imperial physician to take a look at you." Pang Zhijing's eyes narrowed. By the time we return to the relay station and have an imperial physician come, this princess might already be dead. All right, are you deliberately making things difficult for me because you see that this princess is not feeling well? No, this servant's subordinates wouldn't dare. Everyone immediately begged for mercy with a bitter smile. Pang Zhijing thought that these people were all amenable to force but not persuasion. Thus, she angrily glared at them. "The pharmacy is in front. Why aren't you helping me to see a physician?" No one dared to disobey this time. They could only crowd around her and walk into the pharmacy. Because she threatened not to reveal her identity, the attendants could only guard outside and have the attendant accompany her in. As soon as she entered the pharmacy, a young medicine boy came up to greet her. Pang Zhijing had him arrange a highly skilled physician for her, and she was quickly arranged to see a physician. "You stay here. I'll call you if I need anything. Don't make trouble for me," Pang Zhijing said coldly. The maidservant had probably never seen Pang Zhijing like this before and was a little frightened. Although she was unwilling, in front of so many people, Pang Zhijing was the master and she was the servant. She could not overstep her position and could only watch as Pang Zhijing walked towards the doctor. However, she thought that as long as Pang Zhijing was under her nose, Pang Zhijing would not be able to escape. Pang Zhijing glanced back and chuckled. This was the result she wanted. Suddenly, "Miss, your pulse is stable and your complexion is rosy. Your body is very healthy. This old man can't see what's wrong with you." An old doctor frowned as he stroked his beard. Of course this princess is in good health. She wasn't sick. Sir, I'm not the one who's sick. It's someone else. Her face immediately changed into a bitter look. The old doctor was puzzled then. It's my husband. He's always outside and not at home. I haven't seen him for more than half a month. However, my mother-in-law is always scowling at me because I haven't given birth to a child. I'm so bitter. My husband finally came back today, and I see that he's going to leave again. I'm very scared and want him to stay with me. Otherwise, my mother-in-law will marry a concubine for him. The more she spoke, the more heartbroken she was. Anyone who heard it would be sad and shed tears. He had seen too many women like this. Logically speaking, he shouldn't be surprised. However, the woman in front of him was so young and looked so water-spirit. She was about the same age as his granddaughter. The old doctor couldn't help but be moved by her. He felt pity in his heart. Then how does Miss want this old man to help you? She used a handkerchief to wipe the tears that didn't exist at the corner of her eyes. I came today to ask for a medicine that can let my husband stay at home for one night and not go out to fool around. It was not easy to make up a story. It used up a lot of her brain cells, and she was running out of words. Medicine to stay at home? The old doctor's expression was a little strange. She immediately nodded and whispered, "It's that kind of what kind?" The old doctor was not sure. He felt that his guess didn't match the water spirit in front of him. How could this old doctor not understand? Pang Zhijing was a little anxious. It's the kind of medicine that can't leave the house. The old doctor immediately nodded sneakily. Okay, this old man understands. Wait a moment, this old man will go down and get the medicine for you. Pang Zhijing watched the old doctor's vigorous figure leave and heaved a sigh of relief. He finally understood that what she wanted was knockout medicine. However, the ideal was very plump, but the reality was very bony. The old doctor walked to the back and said to his disciple, "Get a medicine for aphrodisiac. Add a bit more medicine and a bit of enchanted grass." Enchanted grass? The disciple was stunned. Wasn't that an aphrodisiac grass? As long as a man ate it, he wouldn't be able to control himself. The old doctor immediately waved his hand. Go. Who knows? Maybe you can become a pair of mandarin ducks today. After saying that, the old doctor walked out with his hands behind his back and his eyes narrowed with a smile. When Pang Zhijing walked out of the medicine shop with the medicine in her arms, the old doctor also smiled and watched her leave. He sighed in his heart that today's weather was really good. The maidservant looked at the medicine in her hand and couldn't help but wonder, "Princess, what medicine did the doctor show you?" "Oh, he said that the weather is too hot, and I'm a little hot-tempered, so he prescribed me some medicine to clear heat and detoxify. It's not a big deal." She pretended that she didn't see the maidservant's hand that reached out to take the medicine. She nimbly climbed into the carriage and ordered, "It's still early. Let's go to Prince Yi's estate." Everyone looked at the setting sun in the west and collectively felt speechless. It was still early? However, considering the relationship between their lord and this princess, no one objected. They turned the carriage around and headed to another street. Pang Zhijing hugged the medicine as if it was a treasure. The corner of her mouth rose. "Xiao, tonight, I'll let you know what it's like to sleep to death. I don't believe that I can't get that key back tonight. Let's wait and see. Tonight, it will be unknown who would be the one to wait and see." In the mountain behind the inner courtyard of the King of England's estate, a red figure appeared in the afterglow of the setting sun. It was obvious that the figure was delicate and beautiful. However, when she spoke, her tone was a little impatient. "Don't you know that I've been watched closely recently? How dare you ask me out? Tell me, what's the matter?" A person stood in the shadow of a tree. He didn't show much emotion after hearing what she said. He still had a business-like attitude. "Master said that Chu Qingyan doesn't need to be kept anymore. He wants you to get rid of her as soon as possible." As he spoke, the person took out a bottle from his sleeve and threw it to her. "This is the palace's secret medicine. One drop can end a life. Master said that you can only succeed, not fail." With that, the person disappeared. He opened the bottle in her hand. The porcelain bottle lay quietly in the palm of her hand. It seemed that the empress couldn't tolerate Chu Qingyan anymore. She was in a good mood and smiled insidiously. Chu Qingyan, oh Chu Qingyan, let's see who can save you this time. Chapter 1148. Although she already got the medicine, Pang Zhijing didn't have a proper plan because of the lack of time. She was completely relying on her impulsive courage to control her actions. Therefore, when she arrived at Prince Yi's estate, her mind suddenly went blank. How was she going to explain her sudden arrival when she saw Xiao Ho later? Also, how was she going to make him fall into her trap? She didn't have a plan. She was really reckless. However, time was tight. Tomorrow was the palace banquet. Tonight was her only chance. No matter what, she had to give it a try. With the thought of facing death unflinchingly, she got off the carriage with a strong sense of righteousness. She felt that every step she took weighed 1,000 pounds. Others didn't know what she was thinking. They only saw that she was looking forward to meeting their lord. Countless question marks appeared above their heads. Could it be that this southern Song princess had taken a fancy to their lord? This wasn't impossible. Pang Zhijing naturally didn't know what they were thinking and couldn't care less. However, if she knew what they were thinking, she would probably bleed 3 liters of blood. What the hell? She and Xiao Ho were enemies. They were irreconcilable. As soon as she entered, she was told that Xiao Ho was receiving guests and asked to wait for a while. This was exactly what she wanted. At least she had some time to figure out what to do. Pang Zhijing pretended to be nonchalant, but her heart was surging with waves because she couldn't find a way to drug him. Soon, someone served tea. Your Highness, please enjoy. Pang Zhijing waved her hand, and the person withdrew. Suddenly, her gaze fell on the tea beside her hand. She blinked. Got it. I left a jade pendant in the carriage. Quickly go and help me find it. She lied through her teeth and sent her maid away. The maid couldn't remember when the princess had a jade pendant, but she still obeyed her orders. This way, she was the only one left in the drawing room. There were 2 servants guarding the door, but they didn't pose a threat to her. She took out the small medicine packets hidden in her sleeves. The old doctor seemed to be worried that she wouldn't have enough, so he specially packed a few small packets for her. He even said buy 1 get 3 free. What a great person! With a sneaky smile, she opened the medicine packet and carefully shook the powder into the tea. Then, she immediately put it away and looked around to make sure that no one had seen her actions. Thus, she allowed a long sigh and leaned against the back of the chair, quietly waiting for Xiao Ho to arrive. After about 15 minutes, she heard the sound of footsteps. Logically speaking, someone like Xiao Ho, who was highly skilled in martial arts, should be able to walk without making a sound. But because of his usual disguise, his footsteps were like a normal person's, so it was not strange for Pang Zhijing to hear them. Hearing the footsteps getting closer and closer, Pang Zhijing swallowed her saliva, feeling nervous and expectant. The fat sheep was about to enter the door. Where should she start slaughtering them later? Xiao Ho quickly appeared at the door. He looked straight ahead as he walked in. Then he sat down at the head of the table and slowly said, "It's so late. For the princess to grace my humble abode, what business do you have?" This clearly showed that he didn't care about her at all. Pang Zhijing's heart was filled with anger, but when she thought about how she would be able to do whatever she wanted to him, she swallowed this anger down. "Can't I come find you if I don't have any business?" She casually replied. "Is that so? But is this king's relationship with the princess so good that we can move around at any time?" Xiao Ho said with a faint smile, but the meaning in his words was enough to choke a person to death. "I'll endure it." Pang Zhijing stood up with a fake smile and picked up the teacup on the table. Then she walked over to Xiao Ho and stopped under Xiao Ho's suspicious gaze. "I know you're angry with me. I thought about it all night when I went back and knew that I didn't listen to you, causing you to lose a chance to attack Xiao Su. I feel very guilty, but I don't know how to express my apology, so I came here today to apologize. This tea is my apology to you." She bent down and placed the teacup in front of him. Xiao Ho raised his brows as he looked at her. It was rare for him to be so obedient, but this teacup, this tea, they are all from this king's palace. Using this to apologize, isn't that too insincere? Hearing him make things difficult for her, she already had a plan to deal with it. Her voice became even more sincere. I know this is a bit of borrowing flowers to offer Buddha, but isn't sincerity the most important thing in an apology? I sincerely feel that I was wrong. As long as you accept my apology, I will fully cooperate with you in the following plan and will not cause you any trouble. Xiao stared at her, and after a while, he slowly said, Are you serious? More serious than a pearl. She almost raised her hand to swear to the moon. Xiao finally nodded and took the teacup from her hand. He was about to put it into his mouth, but he stopped when he saw Pang Zhijing's expectant look. What's wrong? Pang Zhijing was incomparably worried. Don't cause any trouble. The tea is a bit cold. Have a servant change it. After saying this, Xiao prepared to call for someone. What's the use of changing the tea? Pang Zhijing quickly reached out to stop him and anxiously explained, How can it be the same if you change the tea? This cup is filled with my apology. If you change it, how can it still be the same? Xiao nodded. You're right. She then heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao was about to put it into his mouth again, but stopped when it was at his lips. Pang Zhijing covered her little heart. Big brother, you can't affect my heartbeat like this. Since you're the one who handed the tea over, if there's a problem, then you can't run away. Xiao suddenly smiled and said to her unhurriedly, as if he was joking. However, she was really shocked. This person couldn't have really seen through her, right? Just as her heart was in a mess, Xiao smiled and drank the cup of tea. Pang Zhijing let out a long sigh of relief. She finally drank the tea and could be at ease. What are you thinking about? He suddenly said. His voice was very close, as if he was speaking right next to her ear. She turned her head and was shocked. How did you get so close to me without making a sound? Xiao shrugged. You seem to be very nervous. I was just joking with you. You're the nervous one. She raised her voice to hide the panic in her heart. Xiao smiled, but did not say anything. She did not want to argue with him. She remembered that the old doctor said that the medicine would only take effect after the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Then she could not let him stay here. Otherwise, when he fainted, the guards by his side would capture her. It's so boring here. Let's go to your courtyard. I remember that you have a few paintings hanging in your room. I like them a lot, so let's go take a look. She blinked her eyes as she discussed with him. Xiao stared at her face for a while, making her heart feel weak. Only then did he slowly say, Since the princess is interested, then how could this king not agree? Princess, this way, please. Hearing this, Pang Zhijing was overjoyed. Although Xiao seemed a little strange today, in order to get the key, she did not care about anything else. He had already drunk the medicine, so it should be safe. Chapter 1149. Pang Zhijing followed behind Xiao and slowly walked towards the courtyard from before. At this time, her palms were sweating. She tightly clenched her fists and didn't dare to breathe loudly. She nervously looked around. Xiao, who was in front, suddenly stopped. Pang Zhijing, who had been nervous, bumped into his back. She was a bit stunned as she rubbed her head. Her heart was pounding, but her mouth was unforgiving as she said, Do you know how to walk? How can you stop just because you want to? You didn't even make a sound. Xiao turned around and crossed his arms as he coldly looked at her. I already called you a few times, but you didn't answer, so this king was kind enough to stop and wait for you. I really don't know why you were in such a daze. Pang Zhijing's heart skipped a beat. Sure enough, she wasn't suited to doing bad things. She was like a frightened mouse that wanted to bite anyone it caught. She had to act natural, otherwise the bait would be exposed before the fish took the bait. Who told you to be so cold? I don't even know how to talk to you. You can't blame me for this. It can only be said that you don't have good luck with women. She casually made up a story, but she never thought that the person in front of her would instantly narrow his eyes and reveal a dangerous look. This king is cold? Then who was the one that applied the medicine for you? Who was the one that fished you out of the water? Who was the one that gave you food when you couldn't eat 3 meals? If that's the case, you should owe this king several favors, but I never thought that you would play the blame game. Pang Zhijing was filled with regret in her heart. If she knew this would happen, she wouldn't have randomly made up this reason. That, you're my sugar daddy, my creditor, and my savior. I was wrong. I shouldn't repay evil with good. Just pretend that you didn't hear what I said just now. She immediately turned into a lackey as she flattered him. What does sugar daddy mean? Xiao was a bit interested in the new term in her words. Sugar daddy? Sugar daddy? She scratched her head. It's similar to boss. Raising me like this. This mischievous girl in front of him was the Pang Zhijing he knew in the past. Xiao slightly curled his lips. This king is very satisfied with this explanation. Raising her? He's very satisfied? Pang Zhijing swallowed her saliva. Was this person's brain damaged? However, the person in front of her didn't give her a chance to speak. He turned around and continued walking forward. Pang Zhijing immediately jogged to catch up with him. Hey, slow down. She's a lady. Soon, the two of them arrived at the courtyard amidst her endless chatter. Half of the time had passed. Pang Zhijing secretly pinched her fingers to increase her courage. As long as she could endure the remaining time, she would be able to regain her freedom. With this thought, she immediately walked into Xiao's room with her head held high. Out of the corner of his eye, Xiao saw her sneaky look. He smiled faintly, sat down leisurely, and said slowly, "What are you up to?" Pang Zhijing, who was fumbling for something to hide her excitement, was so frightened that she smashed the vase in her hand. She stammered, "What could I possibly do? Isn't that just showing off in front of Master Guan and overestimating one's capabilities?" "You are indeed overestimating your capabilities," Xiao said with a faint smile. Pang Zhijing swallowed her saliva. Why did she feel that there was a hidden meaning in his words? Could it be that she had been exposed? "Speak. You tried so hard to get this prince to bring you here. Is it because you've taken a fancy to something in this prince's room?" Xiao raised his brows and asked leisurely. She let out a big sigh of relief. She had been scared to death. She thought that she had been discovered. Dark night. Dark clouds rolled in as if the sky was about to change. In the blink of an eye, heavy rain poured down. A dark shadow appeared in the King of England's residence. "Master." Water Spirit took off her cloak and stood in the study. "What is it?" Xiao said faintly. Water Spirit stepped forward and reported, "This subordinate has already found out who is spreading rumors about the princess consort and the fourth prince behind her back after the trip to Hugua Temple." "Who?" Xiao's voice instantly froze. "The wife of the assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice, Sangyu, Yao Ingruo." Yao Ingruo? Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. "Who is this person?" "She is the daughter of the current Grand Tutor." Before, Water Spirit paused and glanced at her master before continuing. 5 years ago, because she adored you, she repeatedly made things difficult for the young princess consort. This time, she must have come for the young princess consort. She knew that her master would not remember these insignificant people. However, this time, it really was because of this insignificant person that the young princess consort's reputation had been tarnished. Although they had suppressed the rumors, the people who should know already knew. They were just trying to mend the pen after the sheep had been lost. Thinking about it, Water Spirit's heart was filled with anger. This time, she came to ask her master how to deal with this person behind the scenes. Heavens, this person is already married, but she's still thinking about master. She's really fickle. Hualing couldn't help but curse. Turin patted his shoulder and then raised his head to look at his master in front of him. "Master, how do you plan to deal with this matter?" Their fierce cavalry had never been afraid of fighting and killing, but this was the first time they had made a move against a woman. However, they still had to vent their anger for the young princess consort. "Water Spirit, I'll leave this matter to you. It's easier for you to deal with the matters in the inner courtyard." Xiao's tone was still indifferent. Water Spirit looked at him and heard him say, "It's the father's fault. Or perhaps, the husband should pay for the wife's debts. This prince wants them to disappear from Ayan's sight forever." His cold tone was laced with bloodthirsty bloodlust. Water Spirit and Turin looked at each other. Their master was really angry this time. He wanted to make Yao Ruoying and the others disappear from the capital forever. "We don't have much time left in the capital, so we can't let anything go wrong. These people can't be left alive." Yes, they all knew that the more dangerous the situation was, the more they couldn't let side issues crop up. So these people that would cause trouble for their plan had to be removed one by one. After water spirit left, the entire study fell into silence. Xiao Su leaned back in his chair. His entire person was immersed in the darkness, so no one could see his current expression. Huling, have someone send a message to fourth brother. Tomorrow at noon, this prince will be waiting for him at Red Crane Tower. Huling looked at his master in confusion. What was his master thinking about, meeting the fourth prince at this time? But he still replied, yes. The rumors were like a wave this time, crossing his bottom line. He had more or less sensed his fourth brother's feelings for the little fellow before, but he only confirmed it at Hugwa Temple. Thinking about it, he was just young and impetuous. Once his fourth brother matured, he would understand. So he originally planned to turn a blind eye to it. Once he left the capital with the little fellow, he would treat it as if nothing had happened. But this time, it had brought a lot of trouble to the little fellow. If it wasn't for his fourth brother's carelessness, he wouldn't have been caught and implicated the little fellow. So this time, he definitely wouldn't let his fourth brother go. He would treat it as teaching him a lesson. A person, no matter what they did, should always consider the consequences. Just like how a cat would wash its traces after stealing food. This was the principle he wanted to teach his fourth brother. Chapter 1150. Pang Zhijing placed her hands behind her back and tilted her head. You really understand me quite well. Since you asked so sincerely, I'll be merciful and tell you. Xiao shrugged. Pang Zhijing was secretly happy in her heart. I want this painting on your wall. She pointed at the painting on the opposite wall. I like the painting of that cat very much, so I want to take it back and hang it in my room. She didn't expect that the moment she finished speaking, the person opposite her laughed without giving her any face. In an instant, the scenery was clear and countless fireworks exploded before her eyes. In such darkness, it was as if snowflakes were drifting down before her eyes, paving a long path. At the end of the path, there was a young master in white robes. He was sitting diagonally with his hand on his forehead, smiling in a carefree and relaxed manner. For an instant, she felt a little seedling sprouting there. It was itchy, and she wanted to get closer. Suddenly, an incomparably loud thunder exploded in the sky. She jumped in fright and pulled herself back from the fantasy earlier. It must be an illusion earlier. It must be an illusion. After that, she turned her head and looked in the direction where Xiao Ho was sitting. After she saw clearly, she suddenly blinked. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Xiao Ho propped up his chin and looked at her lazily. Pang Zhijing hypnotized herself. The person before her must be possessed by a ghost. There was still a smile on his face. Xiao Ho lifted his chin toward the painting. That's not a cat. It's a tiger in the mountains. Your Highness, please don't insult the standard of a great teacher. Pang Zhijing looked at the painting in disbelief. Why didn't it look like a tiger? Xiao Ho shook his head. Pointing a deer as a horse, pointing a tiger as a cat. This king has seen it for himself today. Pang Zhijing's face turned red. She had really embarrassed herself. She was so anxious that she wanted to scratch the wall. At this moment, Xiao Ho suddenly held his head. What's going on? I feel a little dizzy. Pang Zhijing's ears were sharp. When she heard this, her eyes widened in surprise. Oh yeah, the medicine was working. She pretended to be kind and walked up to him. She asked worriedly, Lord, what's wrong? Are you too tired? Do you want to rest? Xiao Ho shook his head. Why do I feel even dizzier? Stand properly. Why are you swaying? She snickered in her heart. This knockout drug was really interesting. Even a person like Xiao Ho couldn't resist the effects of the drug. She immediately reached out to support the person who was about to stand up and said very sincerely, it seems that Lord is really tired. This princess is happy today, so I'll help you to the bed to rest first. Just as her hand touched his arm, he raised his head to look at her. His face was abnormally red, and the place her hand touched was also burning hot. She was surprised. This knockout drug was so strange. Why didn't he fall, and why was his entire body burning up? Just as she was about to help him to the bed, she felt a burning hand on her waist. Just as she was about to lower her head, the person leaning on her suddenly turned around and pressed her to the ground. An adult man, tall and strong, pressed her down with a plop. Her entire body fell to the ground. She was almost dazed from the fall, adding to the fact that he was so heavy, she couldn't move at all. Hey, 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 move away. I can't move you. At this moment, Pang Zhijing was still unaware of the changes in Xiao Ho and wanted to break free from him. Who knew that this person looked so thin, but his weight wasn't small at all. She was almost unable to breathe. Xiao Ho's hands were on the ground, holding her in between his arms. One of his legs was pressing down on her legs. His eyes were filled with confusion. Princess, this king feels very hot all over. This drug can make a person's entire body heat up? It's really strange. Pang Zhijing's head was filled with question marks. No matter what, you should first. Her words were stuck in her throat. Pang Zhijing stared at the person who was only a piece of paper away from her and suddenly didn't know what to say. A hand touched her face, and it was so hot that it made people tremble. Princess, are you hiding ice on your body? When I'm close to you, I feel very comfortable. Take liberties? Take advantage of her. Many thoughts flashed through her mind at once. Wait a minute, this isn't a knockout drug. Did that old doctor take the wrong medicine? This, why does it seem like it's an aphrodisiac? However, while she was in a daze, Xiao Ho had already leaned down and pressed his lips against hers. In a flash, Pang Zhijing immediately reached out to push him up. She was so scared that she was already speaking incoherently. Xiao Ho, listen to me. Don't touch me first. All of this is, I won't touch you, I'll use my mouth. The moment he finished speaking, the kiss fell. The sky full of stars suddenly lit up in front of her eyes. She felt dizzy and couldn't see his face clearly. Only her sensitive nerves were following his actions. Little by little information was transmitted to her brain and heart. Suddenly, her body became light. Her whole body was lifted up and swayed for a while. Soon, her back leaned against the soft brocade quilt. The gravity on her body disappeared, and her reason immediately came back. Just when she wanted to see her situation clearly, she felt the belt around her waist loosen. She was so scared that her eyes widened. Looking up, she saw that person standing in front of the bed with his back facing the light. In his hands, there were many things such as belts, hairbands, hairpins. Only then did she realize that her hair was loose and her clothes were untied. Then, the clothes of the person in front of her were also untied, revealing a strong chest. She didn't dare to look down. Things were going in a direction that she didn't expect. At this time, a black shadow covered her and she was firmly in his hands. Xiao Ho, calm down. I'm not your wife. Let go of me. Her scalp was about to explode as she kept arguing. This king doesn't have a wife. Xiao Ho bent down bit by bit. No wife. How is this possible? Wait a minute. This wasn't the main point. Suddenly, thunder rang out and the earth became as bright as day. She narrowed her eyes in fear, and at this time, she saw a string of keys hanging from his waist. Wasn't that the key to the exquisite lock? It really was wearing out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it without any effort. At this time, he was already in front of her. He held her waist with one hand and her hands with the other, fixing them to the side. The hand on her waist slowly moved up and through her clothes. It made her shiver. She suppressed her body's reaction while thinking of a countermeasure. Since the key was in front of her, what was she waiting for? The situation had already reached this point. If she shrank back, then she might not have another chance to touch the key. Let's beat them at their own game. Her hands couldn't move, so she stretched out her long legs and sat on his body, taking the upper hand. Her eyes were like silk, enchanting like a flower. While Xiao Ho was stunned, she revealed a sweet smile. Then today, this miss will use a honey trap. Chapter 11:51. It's raining so heavily outside. I keep feeling a little uneasy. Chu Qingyan stood in front of the window and looked into the pitch-black darkness. She couldn't even see her fingers in front of her as she frowned slightly. Xiao Su stood behind her and followed her gaze. He put his hands on her shoulders and asked in a low voice, "What are you thinking about?" "My right eyelid has been twitching recently. I'm thinking that nothing good will happen." Her left eyelid twitching was a blessing, but her right eyelid twitching was a disaster. She sighed softly. When did you become so superstitious? Xiao Su chuckled. She turned around and puffed up her cheeks. She thought for a while, and then slowly said the worries in her heart. If it was just my right eyelid twitching, of course I wouldn't care. It's just that too many things have happened recently. I originally planned to keep a low profile before we left and not cause any trouble, but I didn't expect all the rumors in the capital to be directed at the two of us. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to get away. The smile on Xiao Su's lips faded. He raised his hand to tuck her hair behind her ear, and his fingers intimately pinched her cheek. His voice was very soft, and in such a stormy night, it was very gentle. Don't worry, I've already dealt with the false rumors outside, and I'll also deal with Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran? Chu Qingyan instantly looked up. Did the big ice block know that Xiao Ran liked her? Looking at her expression, Xiao Su could tell what she was thinking. Do you think that Xiao Ran can hide from me after doing so many things? Chu Qingyan smiled embarrassedly. Who was the big ice block? How could she suppress the things that he was hinting at? She remembered that there were many people in the temple sent by the big ice block. Thinking about it this way, it made sense. She suddenly leaned close to him and sniffed hard. He raised his eyebrows. What are you doing? I'm smelling. Do you smell vinegar? She smiled mischievously. Xiao Su chuckled and used a little strength with his fingertips. She immediately covered her face and glared at him. But then again, do you feel angry that this happened? After all, he was his younger brother. He knew that she was about to become his sister-in-law, but he still had such thoughts. Moreover, the two brothers were so close. Xiao Su was silent for a while because of her question. The hardest thing for people to control is their own feelings. They don't know where they came from, and they're deeply in love. You can't blame him for this, and he reached out and brought her in front of him. He leaned over and leaned against her, his serious and smiling eyes. At that moment, she seemed to see a bright sky full of flowers blooming like a brocade blossoms, but she heard his serious and smiling voice. My Ayan is so outstanding. It's not normal that you don't have followers. His fingers tightened slightly and pulled her into his arms. His eyes were gentle. So, don't feel burdened. You don't have the ability to be a femme fatale. In an instant, the knot in his heart was untied. Listening to the strong heartbeat in her ear, she seemed to hear the sound of nature. In this world, there were only two things that could make her feel at ease: the big ice cube's embrace and her heartbeat. Thank you, big ice cube. Of course. As your man, I'll be possessive. I'll mercilessly crush the peach blossoms around you one by one. So I'll say this first. Don't blame me for being heartless. As Xiao Su spoke, the person in his arms suddenly stood on tiptoe, raised her head, and approached his lips. His pupils shrank. It was rare for the little fellow to take the initiative. With its beauty in his arms, it was even more seductive. He wrapped his arms around her waist, lowered his head, and deepened a kiss. She only needed to take one step, and he would walk the rest of the way. The flickering candlelight warmly lit up the whole room. The silhouettes on the ground were like paper people stuck close to each other, but they gave off a feeling of infinite love and warmth. The night was getting darker and darker. In summer, the heavens would rain, thunder, and showers whenever they didn't like it. Sometimes the sun would still be there and it would rain. It was very dark outside. The lit lanterns were swayed by the strong wind and were quickly extinguished by the rain. The entire Prince Yi's mansion was plunged into darkness. Everyone hid in their rooms and didn't dare to come out. Xiaoho's courtyard was rarely visited by servants. Without his order, no one went to the courtyard. Thunder exploded in the sky. The sound was so loud that it seemed to be right next to their ears. Chu Qingyan saw a flash of light in his eyes. She blinked and looked at him again with the help of the weak candlelight. He looked pained. His white skin was dyed red by the morning glow. He looked like a ripe peach, and she couldn't help but want to take a bite. But just as this thought flashed through her mind, she was shocked by herself. Why was she so infatuated? She shook her head, trying to get rid of these inappropriate thoughts. However, a pair of hands silently appeared on her waist. By the time she reacted, The person below was already looking at her with a victorious smile. Princess, I really couldn't tell. You have such a fiery temper, but your waist is actually so soft and very thin. Boom! The sound of thunder exploded in her head. She was being flirted with in broad daylight again. It didn't matter. She was a modern person and wasn't bound by etiquette like the ancient people. She wouldn't lose a piece of flesh for being touched. She placed her hands on his chest and sat on him in a very ambiguous position, but she felt a little uncomfortable. She was the one who was controlling the situation from above, but why did she feel shorter when she looked into his eyes? This feeling was really annoying. She gritted her teeth. When his hand touched where it shouldn't be, she grabbed his wrist and fixed it to the bed. She knew that with her strength, it would be easy for him to break free, so she had to be smart and not rash. Xiao was very interested in her actions. His eyes revealed a sense of anticipation. She gave him a flirtatious look as her eyes sparkled. Your Highness, you can't eat hot tofu if you're impatient. Come, let this princess help you change your clothes. The girl in front of him seemed to have taken off her original pretty and lively outer clothes. From a tender little flower, she suddenly transformed into a charming flower fairy. He couldn't deny that his heart was moved. However, it was only moved. A man's heart was moved by a woman. Pang Zhijing didn't know the fluctuations in his heart. She reached out and slowly helped him take off his outer clothes. Only a snow-white inner clothes was left, but she felt that this was enough. Her hand slowly moved down. At the same time, her other hand touched his face to divert his attention. Just as she touched the bunch of keys and was about to secretly take them away, she suddenly felt a force on her wrist that was neither too tight nor too loose. She raised her head and met with a pair of beautiful eyes that seemed to be smiling, yet not smiling. Her face turned pale in an instant. Chapter 1152. Being caught red-handed, she didn't know how to react for a moment. She didn't dare to move at all. That person's hand had already slowly moved away from her wrist and reached into her palm. He took out the bunch of keys and placed it in front of her. He hooked it with one finger and smiled meaningfully. Didn't you want to accompany this prince? What do you mean by this? The two of them were in an ambiguous position, one on top and the other below. The man was handsome and the woman was beautiful. It should have been a charming scene, but in reality, the atmosphere had quietly changed. After he finished speaking, it slowly turned cold. Pang Zhijing swallowed her saliva as her heart thumped wildly. But the more urgent it was, the calmer she had to be. She took a deep breath and raised a flattering smile. Didn't I help you take off your clothes? I was afraid that the bunch of keys would hurt you, so I kindly helped you take it away. I can swear to the moon that I didn't mean it. The moon? Xiao chuckled. In this kind of quiet and tense atmosphere, it was especially magnetic. The moon is waxing and waning, and it's different every night. Do you think that this prince will believe you if you swear to such a fickle thing? He really was a difficult person to deal with. Then what do you want me to do to make you believe me? She would first muddle through this hurdle. In any case, he was still drugged, so she could do whatever she wanted to him later. Xiao looked up, and his eyes flashed. He had seen through her thoughts, but he didn't expose her. His finger hooked the bunch of keys and turned around. Then he raised his hand and threw it out of the bed. With a quang-dang sound, the bunch of keys landed somewhere. She couldn't help but cry out. Then she was suddenly pulled down by a force. The world spun, and she was quickly removed. The person she just pressed down on was now looking down at her. Pleasing me. Xiao's thin lips parted as he looked at her with an indifferent expression. What? She was frightened. Xiao, do you know what you're saying? Xiao scoffed. Didn't you just ask what you had to do to make this prince believe you? Now I want you to show your loyalty, and you can't do it? She smelled that something was wrong. Was there something wrong with the medicine? Thinking of this, she thought that it was impossible for her to get the key tonight, so she planned to break free. Xiao, don't forget your identity. Also, regardless of whether we're working together or not, I'm still the princess sent by the Southern Blue Continent to make peace with the Southern Blue Continent. You can't do anything improper to me. Illegal? Xiao seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world. His laughter reverberated from his chest, making her feel a little dizzy. Then may I ask your highness, who was the one who drugged the tea? She was originally extremely angry, but when she heard his question, she immediately became like a deflated balloon. It turned out that he had already discovered her. So if she didn't run now, when would she? She smiled and looked up. What is the Lord saying? Why can't this princess understand a single word? After saying this, while her hands could still move freely, she immediately pushed him to the side. She immediately got up and prepared to escape. However, even though she was fast, someone was faster than her. Just as she jumped off the bed, there was a force that brought her back up. She was a little dazed from a fall. When she opened her eyes, Xiao reached out to hold her chin. His expression was a little cold. Pang Zhijing, weren't you the one who drugged me? Didn't you want to get close to this king? Since your prey that delivered itself to my door, how could this king let you go so easily? Hearing his words, the alarm bells in Pang Zhijing's heart rang. This person wouldn't he force himself on her, right? She was afraid and immediately wanted to struggle, but she found that she couldn't move her body. She looked at the person in front of her in fear. Xiao reached out to touch her face and whispered like a lover. This king has already sealed your acupuncture points. You can't escape. She anxiously said, trying to wake him up. Xiao, are you too drugged? Wake up. When Xiao heard this, he approached her and slowly said in her panic, do you really think that your every move can escape this king's control? What do you mean? She was a little confused. This prince knows exactly what medicine you took when you entered the clinic. So, if you want to fool this prince, your skills are still very shallow. He chuckled and looked at her stunned expression. It seemed that he was amused, and his mood was somewhat happy. She never thought that this person would send someone to monitor her. She felt very indignant, but there was one thing she couldn't understand. The medicine only went through my hands, and I saw you drink it with my own eyes. So how can you be safe and sound? A faint self-deprecation appeared in Xiao's eyes. Do you think that if you want to survive in the imperial palace, you can survive until now without the ability to protect yourself? This king has been testing medicine since young. I don't dare say that I can deal with all the anesthetics and love poisons in the world, but in this king's eyes, those medicines on the market are nothing. That's why this king drank your tea. After listening to these words, the first thought that came to her mind was not that he had lied to her, but that his tone was plain and ordinary, but it was full of vicissitudes that made her heart ache. She did not understand why she would feel this way. However, at this time, his breath hit her face, making her come back to her senses. She angrily said, so you've been acting this whole time? Compared to your dirty tricks, this king feels that this king is already magnanimous. Since you've chosen this path, then you should be prepared to bear the consequences. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rip. Her clothes had already been torn apart, lying in his hands like two pieces of cloth. This change was too fast, so she didn't have time to react. Xiao, you can't be like this. You bought this medicine, so you should know what it does. Now that you're reacting like this king is confused. Did you want this king to pamper you and then take the key? Xiao bit her shoulder and then heard her muffled groan. He wasn't wrong. She didn't want to take the key, but this medicine wasn't her original intention. But the other side didn't listen to her explanation and blocked her mouth as soon as she opened her mouth. Woo, what should she do? This was not the result she wanted. Suddenly, Xiao's attack stopped. He tasted her tears, and it was salty, making his reason come back to him. He propped himself up and looked at her. Her petite cheeks were covered in tears, and her cherry lips were red from being bitten by him. The most important thing was that her tear-filled eyes were filled with grievance, fear, and despair. He felt that somewhere deep in his heart, he suddenly felt a stab of pain. I didn't want to give you this medicine at all. I wanted to buy a knockout drug, but the doctor misunderstood. Her voice was choked with sobs, and she was filled with grievance. Xiao froze because of her words. You big scoundrel bastard. Oh, it was clearly a thunderstorm, but at this moment, his ears were only filled with the sound of her crying. Chapter 1153. Seeing the crying Pang Zhijing in front of him, Xiao didn't know what to do this time. It wasn't that he hadn't seen people cry before, but this was the first time he had seen someone cry to the point that he couldn't get rid of them. He was silent for a while before unnaturally raising his hand to wipe the tears off her face. The extra gentle touch on her face made Pang Zhijing stare at him in a daze. He felt a bit uncomfortable being stared at by her. His movements were gentle, but his words were more obvious. What this king hates the most is people plotting against me behind my back. Princess, what do you have to say about this? At a time like this, he had to take the initiative and stand at the highest point. He had to make her revere him from her initial sadness and anger. Sure enough, Pang Zhijing was just full of anger, but in an instant, she was only left with bits and pieces of dregs by his words. Using this kind of despicable method wasn't right, but he wasn't a good person either. Although she felt it was wrong, she didn't regret it. You're not right. Could it be that you don't allow me to give you a taste of your own medicine? Xiao let out a sigh of relief in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He coldly said, Princess, even if you get the key, do you think you can safely leave the capital? What do you mean? She was surprised. He didn't look like he was lying. The people who want to kill you are lying in ambush outside the capital. If it wasn't for this king's protection, do you think you can still stand here and bargain with this king? Xiao gave a soft snort. Pang Zhijing finally remembered the assassination attempt a few days ago. She had been too comfortable and happy recently, forgetting that the disaster caused by the original body hadn't been solved yet. Her face was filled with annoyance. Xiao saw that her mood was no longer as agitated as before, so he unsealed her acupuncture points. Receiving her freedom, Pang Zhijing immediately stood up from the bed and jumped far away from him. She straightened her neck and said, Since my plan has been exposed, just say how you want to punish me. The winner is king and the loser is in the wrong. After saying this, the person in front of her leaned against the bed and stared at her without blinking. She couldn't understand the emotions in his eyes. Sometimes, I really want to get rid of you. She shuddered. She could tell that he was serious. She thought that if it wasn't for the fact that she was still useful, he would have left her to fend for herself. I'll let it go this time. If it's the next time, I'll throw you out of the city. Then you'll know that I've been merciful to you. She subconsciously clenched her fists. She knew that he meant what he said. Xiao didn't misjudge her fear, and a trace of regret floated in his heart. He knew that she was like this, and threatening her would only be counterproductive. More importantly, he didn't know why he suddenly couldn't bear it. This feeling came inexplicably and suddenly. Okay. She bit her lip and agreed. After saying that, she turned around and walked towards the door like a wandering soul. After taking 2 or 3 steps, her wrist was suddenly grabbed from behind. She didn't know where her strength came from, but she turned around and fiercely pushed him back. She panicked like a trapped beast. Don't touch me. Xiao had been annoyed by her push, but seeing her reaction, most of the anger in his heart dissipated. If you go out like this, you'll fall into the eyes of others. This king will have someone come in and change your clothes. After saying this, he didn't look at her again as he walked past her. Even after she finished changing her clothes, she still didn't see him appear. Princess, Lord is so good to you, the maid in the king's palace said with a look of envy. Her lips twitched, but she couldn't smile no matter how hard she tried. She stepped over the threshold and floated out of the yard like a zombie. In the hallway, the rain flew in and her clothes were covered in water vapor, bringing with it a bone-chilling cold. Her heart was filled with complicated and contradictory feelings. He had clearly almost violated her, but she couldn't hate him. Although on the way here, he had schemed against her many times, but she still had a trace of beautiful expectations for him. Was it because she was obsessed with looks? Did she not have any resistance towards beautiful people or things? As for him, he was also very strange. He could clearly be very cold and heartless to her, but when she schemed against him, he had spared her again and again. Just now, he had even carefully paid attention to her image. Was it because she was his trump card, so he was very lenient towards her? Pang Zhijing, Pang Zhijing, for you right now, isn't the most important thing to you to regain your freedom and become an unrestrained and happy tourist? What is wrong with you? She walked to the king's palace entrance and stepped into the rain, not caring about the rain falling on her body. The servants guarding outside were so scared that they immediately opened their umbrellas to catch her. She looked up at the dark sky, and her heart suddenly felt very empty. What was the meaning of me transmigrating? When Pang Zhijing left the room, Xiao did not go far. He stood on the steps and watched her figure leave with a silent expression. That delicate figure in the wind and rain was like a butterfly that could be blown away at any time. So fragile. It was such a fragile person that he had almost destroyed her just now. Today, when he found out that she had entered the medicine store to buy medicine to scheme against him. According to normal circumstances, he should have been used to it. But the first thing he felt was disappointment. So she was not different from other girls. At that time, he was restrained by his emotions and did not investigate further. Why did he have such thoughts? Now that he thought about it, she was different in his eyes. So later on, he beat her at her own game and wanted her to taste some bitterness. This medicine could not be casually used. Even if it was a normal man, she would still be at a disadvantage in terms of strength. He had originally planned to teach her a lesson, but when he touched her, everything was out of his control. That medicine should not have any effect on him, but it was like he was poisoned and couldn't control his actions. Especially when she took the key, his heart was filled with a trace of panic. If she opened the exquisite lock like this and ran far away, where'd he go to find her? Fortunately, her tears woke him up, but at that moment, he couldn't look into her clear eyes, especially when she cried and said that the medicine wasn't her intention. He immediately overturned his previous denial and anger towards her. How could such a stupid girl come up with such a lousy idea? But he was also glad that it was not a knockout drug. That kind of thing would take some time to dissolve in his body. Perhaps by that time, she would have already escaped far away. "Your Highness, are you tempted?" A figure suddenly appeared behind him and hit the nail on the head. Chapter 1154. The sudden question that came from behind him made Xiao Hoji freeze on the spot. His pupils constricted. The heavy rain, lightning, and thunder seemed to have lost their sound. His mind went blank. How is this possible? Not hearing Lord's reply, Xiao Ho's advisor, Lin Jiangdong, walked out from the shadows. He bowed in front of Xiao Ho, then repeated his question. "Lord, have you fallen in love with that princess?" The first time was a question, but the second time was filled with certainty. Although his heart was surging with emotions, Xiao Ho still maintained a calm expression. "Sir Lin, aren't you thinking too much?" Lin Jiangdong rubbed his chin and smiled faintly. "Lord, the onlooker sees everything clearly. The Southern Blue Princess has a lively temperament and a good appearance. It's not surprising that you've fallen in love with her after spending so much time with her." "What does her want to say?" Xiao Ho glanced at Lin Jiangdong. Lin Jiangdong sighed. "Lord, please don't be sentimental at this time. You still have a blood feud to take. If you don't move forward because of love, then all our years of planning will go to waste." During this period of time, he had seen Lord's changes. Ever since the Southern Blue Princess appeared, his master had changed a lot. Although it was only a small change, it was a fatal flaw for a person in power. Xiao Ho narrowed his eyes. "Are you lecturing this prince?" Lin Jiangdong bowed and apologized. "This one doesn't dare. It's just that this one doesn't want to see Lord forget our grand plan because of your soft-heartedness." Xiao Ho smiled coldly. "How can this prince forget? This prince has prepared for so many years. How can I give up halfway? Don't worry about Pang Zhijing. This prince won't lose the big picture for a small thing, so you don't need to be so paranoid. She doesn't have the ability to make this prince lose control." With the Lord's promise, Lin Jiangdong breathed a sigh of relief. The Lord is wise. After Lin Jiangdong left, Xiao Ho put his hands behind his back and looked up at the curtain of rain. Perhaps Lin Jiangdong was right and wrong, but he would never disrupt his plans for a woman. One person, one eves, one dark night, yet his back appeared bleak. In a courtyard in the capital, Higashio Motetsu leaned lazily on the chaise lounge, fiddling with the fan in his hand. His attention was focused on his hand, and he said in a casual tone, "Today, Palace Lord, you came here personally. Do you have any orders for me?" Dong Ting-fan was sitting at the head of the table. He was very displeased at his son's sloppy appearance. You always stand and sit like this. How are you going to lead everyone in the Moon Palace in the future? I've been like this since I was young. There's nothing I can do about it, so you don't have to take it to heart. If you want to hand over the Moon Palace to me, then hand it over to me. If you don't want to hand it over to me, then that's fine too. I'm used to freedom. If you want me to be free, then I'd be more than happy. Higashio Motetsu still looked indifferent. As soon as he said this, Dong Ting-fan's blood rushed to his head. He angrily pointed at his unambitious son. Do you really want to anger your father to death? Higashio Motetsu looked at him coldly. Although there was a smile at the corner of his mouth, his words were very rude. Do you think you've ever fulfilled your responsibilities as a husband or a father? I'm not going to argue with you. Dong Ting-fan held his forehead. He couldn't discipline this son of his. He remembered the official business he had come for today and said coldly, Tomorrow night is the palace banquet for the official meeting between the two countries. I have something I need you to do. Higashio Motetsu shrugged, unsurprised. Speak. What is it? Although Dong Ting-fan didn't like his son's attitude, he had no choice but to pretend he didn't see it. There were still many things he needed his son to help him with. He gave a look to the person beside him, and a subordinate handed him a letter. After Higashio Motetsu took the letter, he said calmly, This matter concerns the intensification of the conflict between Xiao Ran and Xiao Su. You must take care of it properly. Hearing this, Higashio Motetsu was a little surprised. What kind of matter could achieve such an effect? He opened the letter without hesitation. After skimming through it, his expression turned ugly. Let Chu Qingyin lose her chastity to Xiao Su at the palace banquet? Dong Ting-fan didn't notice his expression and explained, Xiao Ran has taken a liking to Chu Qingyin, but because of the marriage contract, consort, you came up with this idea. Just follow the plan written on it. This way, Xiao Su and Xiao Ran's brotherhood is more or less over. Consort, you wants to use this matter to make it impossible for them to be brothers. You also know that Xiao Ran doesn't have a strong desire to seize the throne. This time, it can be considered giving him a push. After saying this, Dong Ting-fan didn't hear a reply for a long time. He frowned slightly. What? Do you have something to say about this plan? Higashio Motetsu clenched the paper in his hand as if he wanted to crush it. His tone was still as mocking as usual. Don't you think it's disgraceful to do such a thing? You're actually using a woman. Dong Ting-fan coldly glanced at him. Wang Yu, there's no honor or dishonor in disputes over power. As long as you can achieve your goal, there's nothing wrong with using unscrupulous means. What you lack now is the decisiveness to achieve great things. All right, father still has things to deal with, so I'll be leaving first. You just have to remember that this matter can only succeed. After saying this, Dong Ting-fan didn't linger and left with his men. Only Higashio Motetsu and Xuanqi Zimo were left in the hall. Xuanqi Zimo felt the temperature in the room drop continuously, and his scalp tightened. The palace lord didn't know about the relationship between the young palace lord and Chu Qingyin, but he knew very well that Chu Qingyin was the only friend that the young palace lord had taken a liking to after so many years. Now that he was going to scheme against her, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for the young palace lord. Young palace lord, are you all right? He asked with difficulty. He shouldn't have asked at this time, but he knew that other than him, no one else would dare to ask such a question. Higashio Motetsu's gaze never left the letter in his hand. He suddenly laughed softly. His laughter was bleak and bitter. Zimo, I've always thought that standing on the opposite side of Xiao Su, as long as I didn't hurt her, I would be able to maintain the relationship between the two of us. But now, I realize that I was wrong. How can things be so simple in this world? As long as she's someone by Xiao Su's side, the flames of war will spread to her. I just didn't expect it to come so soon. Xuanqi Zimo was stunned. It was rare to hear the young palace lord use the word I to speak. It seemed that the young palace lord had suffered a huge blow this time, but he didn't know how to comfort him. He blamed himself for being clumsy. Higashio Motetsu crushed the letter in his hand, his eyes dark and gloomy. Little girl, how can I protect you? Chapter 1155, Celestial Crane Tower. When Xiao Ran received his eldest brother's invitation, he was a little surprised. He knew that his eldest brother had been busy with the safety of the city and had been busy all this time. He didn't expect that his eldest brother would take the time to invite him out before the start of the palace banquet. It was really unexpected. However, what puzzled him even more was that his eldest brother had never invited him out before. Moreover, it was outside. He pushed open the door to the private room with a stomach full of questions. The moment he entered, he saw his eldest brother sitting leisurely. When he saw him, he raised his chin, indicating for him to sit anywhere. After not seeing his eldest brother for a few days, Xiao Ran felt that his eldest brother had become more dignified. He immediately sat down opposite him and smiled. "Imperial brother, what wind blew you here today?" Ever since the Southern Heavens envoy was confirmed to be entering the capital, his eldest brother had always been a dragon. Every time he wanted to find him, he was met with emptiness. However, this was also because his imperial mother didn't allow him to leave the palace. If not for today's invitation, he would probably be cooped up in the palace for a while. "We two brothers haven't seen each other for a long time. I'm afraid that after today's palace banquet, there will be even fewer opportunities for us to meet. Therefore, while there's still some free time, I asked you out to catch up." Xiao Su poured a cup of tea for him and pushed it towards him, his expression as usual. Xiao Ran was surprised. "Imperial brother, aren't you going to be in the capital in the future? Why are there fewer opportunities for us to meet?" Xiao Su looked at him, his gaze indifferent. "The marriage between Ian and I has been delayed for too long. It's time to carry it out. I plan to bring up the matter of the marriage to Imperial Father after the Southern Heavens peace talks. At that time, I will definitely be too busy to do anything else. After that, I will bring her back to my fief. If there's no special summons, I won't easily return to the capital. Therefore, there won't be many opportunities for us to meet." His words revealed several layers of information. First, his marriage with the little fellow would definitely be completed. Second, he had no intention of seizing the throne, so he and the people behind him could rest assured that they did not have to spend too much effort on him. Unfortunately, Xiao Ran didn't understand his deeper meaning at all. His mind was only focused on his marriage with Qingyan. Isn't this too fast? He was a little incoherent. It was like a bolt from the blue. He was a little lost. Seeing Xiao Ran's reaction, Xiao Su frowned slightly. "Aina has been waiting for me for 5 years. I can't let her continue to follow me without a proper status." Xiao Ran suddenly stood up agitatedly. "But Imperial brother, do you really treat Qingyan with sincerity? If you're only marrying her because of the Imperial edict, it's unfair to Qingyan or to you. Qingyan is a good girl. She deserves better treatment. A forced marriage is not happy." Xiao Ran's extreme reaction was a little unexpected in Xiao Su's eyes. He came today to see how much effort his imperial brother had spent on the little fellow. Now, it seemed that it had exceeded his expectations. "Xiao Ran, do you think that I don't treat Ian with sincerity? You're not us. How do you know what we're thinking?" Xiao Su said indifferently. With little effort, he settled Xiao Ran's agitated emotions. Xiao Ran sat down in a daze. But then he reacted, "But outside, isn't there a rumor about you and the Southern Blue Princess?" His hesitant words made Xiao Su raise his eyebrows. "You've already grown up. In a struggle for power, you should learn what to believe and what not to believe. Sometimes what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears can't be trusted." Looking at his imperial brother, who was still so simple, Xiao Su had a trace of worry in his heart. Could this kind of Xiao Ran really support his great cause in the future? Xiao Ran subconsciously wanted to refute, but seeing his imperial brother's eyes, his words got stuck in his throat. Only then did he realize that his performance was a little too extreme. He sat down embarrassedly and said with an unnatural expression, "Isn't it because I'm too concerned? No matter what, Qingyan is still my friend. Although you're my imperial brother, I'm only helping reason, not family." Facing this kind of Xiao Ran, Xiao Su couldn't help but frown. It seemed that this trip couldn't change his mind at all. This result made him feel disappointed in his imperial brother for the first time. "Fourth imperial brother, At certain times, people will subconsciously ignore some truths in order to convince themselves. I hope that you won't be blinded. I hope that you won't interfere in the matter between me and Ian. It's about time. You should return to the palace to prepare for tonight's banquet. Since there was no conclusion to continue talking, Xiao gave up on the idea. Perhaps time would prove everything. But when he stood up, Xiao suddenly stopped him. He seemed to be enduring something. Imperial brother, in the past, you would always give in to me. Xiao seemed to know what he was going to say next. Before he could say something even more irrevocable, he coldly interrupted him. Fourth Imperial brother, there are some things that I don't fight for because I don't like them and don't care. But there are some people that can't be exchanged or compromised. You're almost 20 years old. Don't say such childish things. Take care of yourself. I'm leaving. Before he left, Xiao looked deeply at his fourth Imperial brother in front of him. He didn't know if it was because he was absent for so many years, or because the environment could easily change a person, but he felt that the naive and unaffected fourth Imperial brother seemed to have slowly faded away with the flow of time. If he hadn't stopped him in time just now, it was likely that the brothers would have turned against each other. The little fellow was the bottom line that he couldn't back down from. For this, even if he met gods, he would kill gods. If he met Buddha, he wouldn't hesitate to kill Buddha. But he didn't want the little fellow to become a conflict between the brothers. After the door was closed, Xiao slumped into the chair like a piece of soft mud. The last words that his eldest brother said just now were the most severe he had ever heard in his life. It wasn't just a criticism, it was a warning. Why? In the past, his eldest brother wasn't like this. Even if he did something wrong, his eldest brother would tolerate him and not be harsh on him. Whatever he wanted, his imperial brother wouldn't fight with him. Why was it that now, when he only mentioned Qingyan a little, his imperial brother became different? Could it be that there was something that he had subconsciously overlooked? However, no matter what, Qingyan was the first woman he had ever admired. His eldest brother had made too many enemies and was unable to ensure her safety. Therefore, he was the only one who could provide her happiness. Thinking of this, he became even more determined. Everything had to be done before his eldest brother and Qingyan got married. Otherwise, it would be too late. But his imperial mother had already promised him. After tonight's palace banquet, perhaps he would be able to get what he wanted. Xiao clasped his hands on the table and revealed an expectant smile. He had completely forgotten what Xiao had said just now. Chapter 1156. It was already close to evening, and there were only 2 hours left before the start of the banquet. At this time, Qingyan had already changed her clothes. Xining had just inserted the last hairpin into her hair when she received news that Big Ice Cube had returned. She couldn't wait to know the result of his conversation with Xiao, so she lifted her dress and prepared to go out to see him. However, just as she stepped out of the room, she saw the person standing at the bottom of the stairs. The flowers were gradually mesmerizing, and in front of her was a delicate and handsome man. The person in front of her was clearly wearing the usual black brocade robe, but he had changed it into a silver belt with dark patterns. His face was still covered by a silver mask, and other than his slender fingers, his entire body was covered. However, under the parasol tree, at a glance, there were luxuriant flowers and leaves, and the handsome tree was pleasing to the eye. She couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth. I just knew you were back, and you're already here. Xiao's gaze fell on the young girl on the stairs. For this solemn banquet, she had combed her hair into a dignified and beautiful bun, with sapphire blue peacock gold hairpins on both sides. Her wings looked like they were about to spread out and fly, adding a touch of liveliness and elegance. She was wearing a dark red robe, with a belt of the same color as his waist. At a glance, without looking at her beautiful face, she gave off a fresh and elegant feeling. The two looked at each other and unconsciously smiled. There was a kind of joy between lovers, where they would smile as soon as they saw you. This was the simplest and most direct form of deep affection that came from the heart. Xiao waved his hand at her. Without thinking, she lifted her dress and ran towards him, causing Xining to repeatedly warn her to be careful of the decorations on the dress. Unfortunately, she was pulled away by Jasper, giving these two little lovers some space alone. Chu Qingyan ran 3 steps in front of him, then stopped and turned around playfully. "How is it? Does this dress look good?" Xiao Su's attention was attracted by her. His gaze fell on her bright eyes, and the corners of his mouth rose. "It suits you very well. Of course. I've always trusted water spirit's foresight." She giggled and ran towards him like a butterfly. Xiao Su opened his arms to catch her, then pinched her smiling face. "You're already so old, yet you're still so clingy. I'll only stick to you. If you find me annoying, I'll find someone else." She gave him a mischievous smile, her words full of ridicule. Xiao Su pinched her nose and chastised her. "How dare you?" She stuck out her tongue and returned to the topic at hand. "How was it today?" He knew what she wanted to ask, but he didn't want to tell her the truth at this moment. He didn't want her to feel embarrassed, so he said casually, "We didn't talk for long before someone from the palace came to pass a message, so let's put this matter aside for now. After the palace banquet is over, I'll deal with it." She wanted to be at ease when Big Ice Cube was in charge, so she didn't think too much about it. She nodded and said, "Should we set off now? I still have things to deal with, so you can leave first. I've already sent Jean Xin to pick you up. After 2 hours, I'll meet you in the palace." This palace banquet was related to the peace negotiations between the two countries. It was an important matter that couldn't be neglected, so he had to pay more attention to the city's defenses. Chu Qingyan nodded. The closer it was to the palace banquet, the busier Big Ice Cube was. This was obvious to all. Although it pained her to see it, she couldn't help much. She could only remind him to take good care of himself. Jean Xin had already arrived. Chu Qingyan thought of Xining and immediately turned to greet them. Then she acted coquettishly to Big Ice Cube for a while before leading everyone to the entrance of the palace. Xiao Su watched her departing figure. He stood there quietly for a while before leaving to deal with the matters. The group of people had just left the palace when they saw Jean Xin standing at the entrance. After not seeing him for a while, Chu Qingyan felt that he was becoming more and more high-spirited. In the past, he was like a sword that was hidden in a scabbard. All the light was hidden. Now, he was like a sharp sword that was unsheathed, shining brightly under the sun. She saw it and felt proud. This was someone who had walked out from under her. So, how could he be bad? "Master." Jean Xin saw her, immediately went up to greet her respectfully. "I heard that the places under your command have improved security. The people are full of praises for you. You did not embarrass me. You did well." She had always been fair in her rewards and punishments to her own people, so she spared no effort in praising him. Jean Xin had a serious face just now, but when he heard his master praise him like this, his cheeks flushed red, and he was a little embarrassed. He cupped his hands and said, "This is what this subordinate should do. All right, don't be modest. I haven't seen anyone at your age who can do this. Work hard and save up for your wife. I've already reserved the best candidate for you." Chu Qingyan said as she looked at Xining, who had been looking over. Jean Xion's face turned red again, but he had always been serious. Chu Qingyan could not tease him, so under everyone's urging, he got into the carriage. Xining and Jasper also climbed into the carriage. But before getting in, Xining secretly glanced back and happened to meet Jean Xion's gaze. The two of them blushed and immediately went about their own business. After the group finished getting ready, Jean Xion raised his hand and gave the order to set off. When he first entered the imperial court, it was completely because of His Highness's words that moved his heart. Now that he had gradually gained a firm foothold in the imperial court, if his master needed anything in the future, he would give his all without hesitation. Chu Qingyan lifted the curtain and pointed at the heroic Jean Xin as she said to Xining, There aren't many good men like this. You had to hold on tight." The heat on Xining's face had not subsided, and because of her master's teasing, she blushed even more. She covered her face and said, "Master, don't say any more. This servant didn't hear anything." These words made Chu Qingyan and Jasper burst into laughter. The officials who could attend this time's palace banquet all had very high statuses. The women who could attend all had a certain title of nobility. This was also to show respect for the peace talks between the two countries. However, at the palace entrance, there were people coming and going, and there was an endless stream of horses and carriages. Regardless of their status, they all had to enter the palace in order of arrival. Chu Qingyin's group was a bit late, so they were at the back waiting for the people in front to enter the palace first. At this time, Jasper suddenly said, "Master, isn't that the Southern Song Princess carriage?" Chu Qingyin heard this and looked in the direction of her finger. Sure enough, she saw Pang Zhijing's carriage. The Southern Song's customs were different from the Sichuan, so her carriage, which was completely different from the Sichuan, stood out on the entire road. It was hard not to notice it. However, there were many carriages between them, so it was difficult to greet each other. Chu Qingyin wanted to withdraw her gaze, but at this time, a gust of night wind blew and lifted the curtain of the carriage. After she glanced at it, she couldn't help but frown. With that glance, she seemed to see that Pang Zhijing's complexion was very bad. Moreover, her expression was grave, as if she was thinking about something important. Chu Qingyin felt that something was wrong when she saw Pang Zhijing's expression at such a crucial moment in the peace talks between the two countries. Could it be that there would be some unforeseen event at tonight's palace banquet? Chapter 11:57. Chu Qingyin was right. Pang Zhijing's complexion was very poor today because she had fallen ill after being drenched in the rain last night. However, today's banquet was very important and she could not be absent. Even if she wanted to refuse, the group of envoys and Xiao would not allow it. "Lord, the princess has arrived," Xiao's subordinate whispered into his ear. Xiao looked over. Today, she was wearing a long dress that was a mix of light white and dark blue. She wore a furry headdress with red and white beads hanging from the bottom. The beads on both sides of her head fell on her shoulders. She looked very cute and playful. A large string of silver ornaments hung in front of her chest. When she walked, the bells jingled. However, his gaze fell on her pale face, and he frowned slightly. The moment Pang Zhijing entered the palace, she automatically searched for Xiao's figure. Naturally, she saw him first. However, unlike her usual provocative gaze, she subconsciously retracted her gaze and obediently followed the group of envoys to their seats. To be exact, she was a little guilty because she was afraid that she would do something unusual tonight. Therefore, she did not dare to face Xiao directly. She was afraid that he would find out. Xiao thought that she was still brooding over what happened last night and did not take it to heart. He focused on being a weak and sickly prince. Chu Qingyin brought Jean Xian and two servant girls into the palace. Because of her appearance, there was quite a commotion in the palace. Ever since she had fasted, Chu Qingyin had rarely appeared in public. However, because of that promotion, she had unknowingly become one of the most sought-after people in the capital city. The product was good and effective. After many wives of officials used it, the number of times their husbands went out to flirt with other women decreased. After the ladies of famous families used it, their marriage rate greatly increased. In addition, Chu Qingyin intentionally or unintentionally revealed the maintenance method, which won the hearts of many women. Therefore, when the rumors about Xiao ran and her spread, many people remained silent. Things like this that tarnished one's reputation. As long as word of mouth spread, it wouldn't take long for one's reputation to be tarnished. Without these people adding fuel to the fire, as long as a new rumor appeared, the previous rumor would quickly be covered up. As soon as Chu Qingyin appeared, many of the women stood up to greet her. In the past, this scene appeared because she was Xiao Su's fiancée. Now, it was all because of her own efforts that people were willing to approach her. In today's world, why would they need to rely on anyone and rely on anyone for support? There was a reason for the seating arrangements for today's banquet. It was basically arranged according to the rank of the officials. Chu Qingyin and Xiao Su's seats were relatively closer to the front. As soon as Chu Qingyin sat down, she was warmly greeted by the girls beside her. "Qingyin, long time no see. How have you been?" Jin Yueqing, who was very familiar with her, smiled and nodded at her. "Yes, The weather is too hot. We don't have many chances to go out and see each other. It's rare that we can get together tonight. Tang Lanhan also smiled and spoke. Jin Yueqing was the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Works, and Tang Lanhan was the legitimate daughter of the Minister of Revenue. These two ministers were on the left minister's side. Chu Qingyin was not surprised that they were arranged to be by her side. However, putting aside their identities, she had a good impression of these two girls. Last time at Hugua Temple, it was thanks to their help that her sales were able to go so smoothly. Thanks to the good fortune of you girls, other than the hot weather, everything else is fine. I see that your complexions have improved a lot recently. Chu Qingyin also took the initiative to chat. Jin Yueqing immediately covered her face and said shyly, "Is that so? I feel that after using that facial cleanser, my skin has become cleaner. Also, the more I look at my eyebrows, the more satisfied I am." Tang Lanhan smiled and teased, "Qingyin, you don't know. Yueqing has always disliked the shape of her eyebrows. A few days ago, she listened to the owner of the extension products and trimmed her eyebrows. Now, she shows off her eyebrows whenever she meets people. Don't tell me how shameless she is." Jin Yueqing immediately raised her hand and patted her lightly. "Save some face for me. Don't tell others everything." Chu Qingyin and Tang Lanhan looked at each other and grinned from ear to ear. Girls always talked about beauty and gossip when they chatted. Jin Yueqing then said mysteriously, "Did you guys hear about what happened to the eldest young master of the Fu family a few days ago?" Chu Qingyin's hand that was holding the teacup paused. She naturally knew about this because her big ice cube was the mastermind. Tang Lanhan covered her mouth with a handkerchief and said mockingly, "This matter has become the laughing stock of the circle. How can we not know? This Fu Onlai has done all kinds of evil. Usually, he uses his status to be arrogant and despotic. In the past, no one dared to deal with him. Now, he's kicked an iron plate. How satisfying." Jin Yueqing didn't hide her disgust for Fu Onlai at all. Tang Lanhan nodded and then said in a low voice, "It's strange. Rumors say that Fu Onlai provoked someone he shouldn't have, and that's why he was schemed against like this. Not only did he lose his reputation, but more importantly, I heard that he was traumatized. But I don't understand. Who is the person who has a higher status than the right prime minister and can't be provoked?" Jin Yueqing didn't think too much about it. She waved her hand and said, "Who cares who did it? Let this dissolute disciple have a taste of the consequences. It can be said that all the women in the capital city have vented their anger. I heard that the people worship the person behind the scenes. They almost worship him." When Chu Qingyin heard their discussion, if it wasn't for her strong self-control, she would have laughed out loud. It seemed that her big ice cube had done a good deed of slaying evil. But in the blink of an eye, the two young ladies' topic changed to another topic. "Qingyin, you could be considered a member of the imperial family. Have you heard about which prince His Majesty will arrange for the marriage of the Southern Song princess?" Jin Yueqing looked at her curiously and blinked. She shook her head. "I haven't heard about this. Why, do you have any gossip?" At this time, Tang Lanhan took over. We're not too sure either. But we heard that His Majesty has asked the second prince to go to the relay station more often. But it seems that he hasn't met the Southern Song princess. Xiao. Chu Qingyin thought back to the handsome and carefree prince Xiao who was standing at the foot of the palace walls. He did not have any power, and he lived a carefree life. Thinking about it, the West Xian Arch could very well have betrothed her to Xiao. Whether it was for public or private reasons, it was a good place for Pang Zhijing. But she hadn't heard about this matter. She would ask the big ice cube when he came. Speak of the devil. She had just put down the teacup when a familiar figure appeared in her field of vision. He was still as handsome as before, standing tall and straight with an awe-inspiring aura. She couldn't help but smile at him. Chapter 1158. Xiao Su's appearance caused another stir. The civil and military officials were intimidated by his aura and admired his youth. The youths worshipped him as the god of war, capable in both civil and military matters, protecting the country, and his reputation spread far and wide. The noble ladies admired his outstanding temperament, and he was a hero in the hearts of the common people. Xiao looked at Xiao Su, who walked in with a clear gaze. His fingers lightly pinched the cup as a meaningful smile appeared on his face. This prince wants to see if you have the ability to walk out of all the checkpoints I've set for you tonight. Xiao Su ignored everyone's gazes and walked straight to his seat. Tang Lanhin and Jin Yueqing immediately returned to their seats to give the young couple some space. Chu Qingyan smiled at the two, then raised her head and asked the people sitting down, "Has everything been settled?" Xiao Su took the cup she handed over with a smile, giving her unique gentleness that others couldn't enjoy. "The troops have been deployed, so there aren't any big problems." She nodded. At such a large palace banquet, the most worrying thing was unforeseen events. As long as no one risked their lives to enter the palace to assassinate, then there would be no problems. "That's right. I just heard that His Majesty seems to have the intention of appointing a marriage between the second prince and the Southern Song Princess," she asked in a low voice. Xiao Su slightly raised his brows. Recently, he had been busy with official matters and rarely paid attention to these matters. "I didn't know about this matter. Imperial Father has such a plan? But if it's second brother, it's not impossible." Second brother had long reached the age of marriage, but because of his undisciplined personality, he kept delaying it. Now that the Southern Song Princess's status was awkward, it wouldn't be appropriate no matter which prince she was betrothed to. However, whether it was status, character, or future cooperation between the two countries, second brother was a good choice. Then it seems that the answer will be revealed tonight. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up in anticipation. This palace banquet was just a cover for the diplomatic envoy group to pick a suitable son-in-law for the Southern Blue Princess. No matter who it was a matter worth being curious about. Although she didn't have a good impression of Xiao Ho, he and Xiao Ran were both worthy candidates. Just as she thought of Xiao Ran, she felt a gaze fall on her. She raised her head and saw Xiao Ran, who she hadn't seen since returning from the Hugua Temple. Although the window paper between them hadn't been broken, she still felt unnatural when facing Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran started paying attention to her from the moment he entered the palace, but she only had eyes for his eldest brother. She didn't see him who came in with his eldest brother. This made him feel a bit disappointed, but when he thought of what might happen tonight, he became excited. Although he didn't know what method his mother's, it would be, and he didn't know how. After Xiao Su and Xiao Ran entered the palace, most people's eyes revolved around them. One was the popular lord, and the other was the little prince who was doted on by His Majesty. No matter which one he climbed, his future would be limitless. Yu Tianyue sat to the side and supported her chin with her hands, complaining, "It would be great if I could sit next to big sister Qingyan. I'm so happy to chat with her. Her words are like a spring breeze. I can also learn a lot of stories that aren't available in the capital." The seats are arranged according to their titles. Naturally, we can't sit with them. Qilingyi heard her complaints and replied with a smile. Ever since Xiao Su had appeared, her attention had been fixed on him. She had been looking forward to meeting him before she came. Now that he was here, it was as if a pool of spring water had been disturbed. She was uneasy, and her cheeks couldn't help but heat up when she looked at him. Yu Tianyue didn't notice the change in her friend's expression. She turned to look at the person opposite her. "Look, everyone is dressed very carefully today. Even someone like Jing Mingzhu has put a lot of effort into her outfit." Yu Tianyue said this because a few days ago, a new batch of jewelry had arrived in the capital. Jing Mingzhu and Meng Shishu had both taken a fancy to the treasure of the shop. Sparks flew, and in the end, the highest bidder won the jewelry, which was won by Jing Mingzhu. Meng Shishu's resentment couldn't be appeased. For a moment, she became the topic of conversation after dinner. That's natural. To be able to gather all the noble ladies and gentlemen of the capital together is only a few times a year, so everyone cherishes this opportunity. Qilingyi's mind wasn't here, so she blurted out some of her words without thinking, causing Yu Tianyue to take a few more glances. This doesn't seem like something Lingyi Jieji would say. Yu Tianyue pursed her lips and smiled. Qilingyi finally realized that she had misspoken. She immediately lowered her eyes and smiled to muddle through, "I heard it from others. Don't speak nonsense." The two of them chatted and laughed until they came to an end. Because it was still early for the banquet, the Sichuan emperor and his concubines had yet to arrive. Everyone exchanged pleasantries. The men talked about politics and academics, and the women talked about needlework and beauty. It was a harmonious atmosphere. However, after drinking 2 cups of tea, Xiao felt his eyebrows twitch. He turned to look at Pang Zhijing, who wasn't far away. She seemed to be too quiet tonight. He thought for a moment, then gave a few instructions to his subordinates. He covered his mouth and coughed as he left. Soon, a palace servant appeared beside Pang Zhijing. After hearing the palace servant's words, she subconsciously looked at Xiao's seat, but it was already empty. She didn't want to go out at this time, but in the end, she still found an excuse to leave the hall. Under the palace servant's guidance, she stood under a remote palace wall. Xiao, who had ordered her to come out, was standing not far away. "Calling me out at this time. Aren't you afraid that someone will see and make an issue out of it?" Pang Zhijing clenched her fists and preemptively said. Xiao was a little surprised by her stubbornness. He smiled lightly and said, "This prince is afraid that a noble person like Princess will forget things and forget our plan. Therefore, this prince specially invited Princess out to reiterate the goal of our cooperation tonight." Pang Zhijing thought it was as expected. She said in a bad mood, "Xiao, do you really think that everything is under your control and that there won't be any accidents?" Xiao looked at her vigilantly. "What does princess mean?" Pang Zhijing waved her hand and said in a sickly voice, all right, don't worry. I will follow your request and choose Xiao Su when your imperial father asks who he wants to marry. Don't make a fuss over nothing." Although he was still a little worried, Xiao didn't continue the topic when he saw her haggard face. "You know, this prince is looking forward to Princess's next performance." Pang Zhijing smiled calmly at him and said, "I can't leave for too long, so I'll be leaving first." After she turned around, she took a deep breath and slowly loosened her clenched fists. She didn't want to be so obedient this time. She didn't want to be a puppet anymore. Xiao watched her departing figure and was silent for a moment. In the end, he also followed her back into the hall. Chapter 1159. In such a bustling moment, no one noticed if anyone had left or returned. Thus, Pang Zhijing and Xiao's departure and return didn't attract much attention. As the eunuchs sang, Sichuan Emperor and the Empress appeared hand in hand. "Long live the Emperor! Long live the Empress! Long live the Empress! Long live the Empress! Long live the Empress!" Everyone knelt down and saluted, their voices mighty and imposing. Sichuan Emperor and Empress Liang sat together at the head of the table. He looked at the officials and womenfolk below and waved his hand. "Rise." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Everyone stood up and retreated to their seats. The West Xian Emperor looked towards the seats on the right, which were specially set up for the Southern Heavens diplomatic envoy group. He stroked his beard and smiled. "Have the esteemed envoys of your country had a good rest these past few days?" Tuwali cupped his hands and said in a clear voice, "Thanks to Your Majesty's good fortune, we ate, drank, and slept well in the relay station, as if it were our own home. This is all thanks to Your Majesty's hospitality." Sichuan Emperor nodded happily. "Of course. Since you've come, you're a guest. We were worried that we wouldn't receive you well. This is good." As he spoke, Sichuan Emperor's gaze turned to Pang Zhijing, who was sitting quietly at the side. He revealed an amiable smile. "Princess, I heard that you've been walking around the capital these past few days. Did you gain anything?" Pang Zhijing was startled when her name was suddenly called, but she quickly calmed down and replied, "Sichuan is a land of outstanding heroes. There are sceneries everywhere. It's much more fun than our southern song." During this time, Zhijing also made many friends. This trip wasn't in vain. The princess's words are more valiant than our Sichuan women. "You're a heroic girl. You're worthy of being Princess Mingzhu that the Southern Song Emperor has painstakingly cultivated. Natural and unrestrained, You don't lose to the men of your region. Sichuan Emperor exchanged a few pleasantries, then changed the topic. Now, let's invite the princess and the envoys to enjoy the wonderful program that our country has specially prepared for you. It's to comfort you from the hardships of your journey. As soon as Sichuan Emperor finished speaking, singers and dancers immediately swarmed in from outside the palace. Music played on both sides, and the entire hall was bustling with noise and excitement. As Chu Qingyan was seriously watching the performance, a shadow suddenly appeared in the corner of her eyes. She couldn't help but turn her head to look and saw a figure sneaking up to her seat. As if sensing that someone had noticed him, he turned around and winked at her, telling her not to make sound. Wasn't that Xiao Yao? Xiao Su also noticed him. Why are you so late? Xiao Yao's seat was right below his, so it was very convenient for the two of them to talk. Don't mention it. I'm so tired these past few days. Xiao Yao waved his hand, his expression full of grief. Did someone bully you? Xiao Yao had been drinking her good wine recently, and Chu Qingyan was no longer as distant from him as before. Because of Xiao Su, she was much closer to him, and she could joke around with him now. Hearing this, Xiao Yao glared at his imperial brother. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. This one of yours even dares to tease me. The eldest sister-in-law is like a mother. In the future, her seniority will be higher than yours. Shouldn't she be concerned about you? With the wine cups intertwined and the lights dimmed, in this leisurely and lively atmosphere, Xiao Su's aura was less austere and more gentle. His words were much more relaxed. Xiao Yao shook his head and sighed. Sure enough, once you have a sister-in-law, you've forgotten your brother. I'm so pitiful. I don't know what Imperial Father is thinking these past few days, making me go to the relay station every day. He said that he wants me to contribute to the friendship between our two countries, but in reality, he's simply ignoring me. I can't even see his shadow all day. Hearing this, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan couldn't help but look at each other. Xiao Su muttered, Imperial Father intends for you to marry the Southern Song Princess. I don't know. Xiao Yao immediately waved his hand. He smiled and said, You also know that I'm used to being free and unfettered. It's too difficult to tie me down with a marriage contract. Besides, I don't have the fortune to enjoy this kind of marriage. The Southern Song people were ruthless. Maybe this princess was unruly by nature. He didn't want to marry a tigress to serve in the Fu. That was simply too torturous. It's hard to disobey the monarch's orders. Maybe His Majesty has this plan. Chu Qingyan added. She rolled her eyes and wanted to speak for Pang Zhijing. Also, I've met this princess a few times. She's a cute and innocent girl. Maybe you two will get along well. This topic was left to the little fellow to deal with. Xiao Su didn't want to get involved. Xiao Yao resolutely shook his head. Then, he mysteriously leaned over and said, No matter who the marriage partner is in the end, I have some gossip here. I don't know if you two want to hear it. After saying this, Xiao Su uninterestedly drank the wine in front of him. Only Chu Qingyan calmly looked at him. Xiao Yao's face was defeated. AI, you two forget it. I'll tell you. He lowered his voice and said, I think there's something fishy about this Southern Song princess and third brother. After saying this, he thought that he would be surprised by the two. He didn't expect that one was still uninterested and the other was still calm and unruffled. Hey, you can't be like this. In any case, I've shared such secret information with you two. Xiao Yao mumbled. It's not that we don't want to support you. It's just that we've already received this information. Chu Qingyan kindly explained. Although the relationship between Pang Zhijing and Xiao Ho was unclear from their private interactions, it wouldn't be right to say that there wasn't any relationship. Did you discover something? At this time, Xiao Su spoke. Xiao Yao raised his eyebrows and nodded. That's right. Didn't I go to the relay station yesterday? It's a pity that I didn't see the princess, so I simply drank some wine nearby. Afterwards, I saw the princess return in a daze, as if she had suffered a huge blow. I asked around and found out that she returned in the direction of third brother's residence. Don't you think this is a coincidence? This made Chu Qingyan surprised. Pang Zhijing had just visited their prince's residence yesterday. When she left, she was still very happy. Why did she suddenly run to Xiao Ho's residence? Second prince, then according to what you said, the person who will marry the princess today is a bit uncertain. Could it be that Pang Zhijing likes Xiao Ho? Xiao Yao laughed mischievously. He crossed his legs and said to his eldest brother, I have a bold guess. Do you want to hear it? After he finished speaking, he recalled their previous behavior and shook his head. He didn't want to ask for more trouble and went straight to the point. Imperial father's choice is me, but the Southern Blue's choice is you, Imperial brother. How is that possible? Chu Qingyin's eyebrows twitched, and she subconsciously asked. Xiao Yao smiled mysteriously. If we look at the relationship between third brother and Southern Blue, it's not impossible. After all, he can take the opportunity to remove the military power from eldest brother's hands. Southern Blue was a large country and also a fierce opponent. The imperial court wouldn't hand over such an important military force to eldest brother. Therefore, if he won the beauty, it would be equivalent to giving up power. That depends on whether I agree or not, Xiao Su coldly said. Chapter 1160. Although Big Ice Cube's words reassured her, Chu Qingyin was still worried that she would get into trouble at a time like this. Sensing her uneasiness, Xiao Su placed his hand on the back of her hand and patted it. Don't worry, I'm here for you. No one can force me to do anything. Chu Qingyin smiled and nodded at him. Xiao Yao rubbed his nose as he watched the two interact warmly. It seemed that eldest brother didn't know how to flirt, but it depended on who he was dealing with. Sigh, why did he suddenly feel lonely? No. He should just spend the rest of his life with his fine wine and delicacies. Consort Yu, who was sitting below the Sichuan emperor, looked in her son's direction. As expected, this silly child's gaze never left Chu Qingyin. Consort Yu was a bit resentful that he didn't fight for her. However, he was still the child she gave birth to after carrying him for 10 months, so she couldn't blame him. Thus, she used the excuse of leaving the hall as an excuse to leave with Jade Rabbit. The two stopped at the entrance of a hidden corridor. There were eunuchs guarding the corridor, so no one would be able to discover this place easily. Consort Yu waited for a while before a figure appeared in front of her. How are the arrangements? Consort Yu got straight to the point when she saw the person. The person who came was dressed as a eunuch from the Moon Palace. When he heard Consort Yu's question, he lowered his head and replied respectfully, We've already made the preparations. When the time comes, we'll lure Chu Qingyin to the edge of the pond and arrange for the fourth prince to be nearby. As long as Chu Qingyin falls into the water, the fourth prince will jump into the water to save her. Then, your highness will get what you want. Consort Yu revealed a proud smile when she heard this. As long as Ran'er saved Chu Qingyin, then no matter what engagement she had, it would be the same as losing her chastity to Ran'er. After all, men and women shouldn't touch each other. Once they had physical contact, she would never be able to get married again. Moreover, this way, she and Ran'er would be an illegitimate union. She wouldn't be able to take the position of first consort. She could get rid of any concubine. This way, she could satisfy Ran'er's wishes without affecting the overall situation. When she thought of this, Consort Yu became more and more satisfied with today's arrangements. She stood under the moonlight, her figure as graceful as a flower, but gave off a sinister feeling. After Imperial Concubine Moon and the others left, the man dressed as a eunuch raised his head and looked in the direction they left with a smile. The dim yellow light of the lanterns shone on his face. Wasn't this Xuanqi Zimo? The books say that only vile people and women are difficult to deal with. Sure enough, it's true. He shook his head, then immediately lowered his head and prepared to leave. After taking a few steps, he almost bumped into someone. Xuanqi Zimo immediately raised his head. When he saw who it was, he cried out, Young Palace Master, why are you here? His master was usually very careful and didn't like to do things personally. He didn't expect to see him here today. Higashio Motetsu was also dressed in eunuch robes. His devilishly charming face was slightly more adorned, and he didn't look as arrogant as he usually did. However, his posture was still languid. He leaned against the wall and took out the folding fan at his waist, fanning himself casually. A banquet between two countries. Sounds interesting, so this young master came to join in the fun. Xuanqi Zimo shook his head inwardly. The young palace master was probably worried about today's operation, so he came to supervise it. From the looks of it, the young palace master really took great pains to care for Miss Chu. He was worried about her all the way until she was plotted against and in danger. Higashio Motetsu looked at the hustle and bustle of the palace. His expression was calm, and his long hair fluttered in the evening breeze. He seemed to emit an otherworldly aura. Under the moonlight, he was extremely beautiful. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Then he disappeared into the darkness. Since his young palace master had left, Xuanqi Zimo immediately left as well. His mission tonight was very important. Inside the main hall, after 3 rounds of wine, the singers and dancers temporarily retreated and the music stopped. Only the lingering sound of the music lingered in the ears. Sichuan Emperor raised his wine cup and said to the group of Southern Blue envoys, "This cup of wine is a toast to the ministers who traveled thousands of miles to Sichuan. Thank you for your hard work." Tori and the others immediately stood up and returned the toast. "Your Majesty is too serious. Diplomatic relations between 2 countries are important. We are honored to be able to represent our countries here." The 2 sides drank the wine in one gulp. Tori didn't leave immediately after drinking. He said in a rough voice, "We have already sent the draft of the agreement back to our country for the king to look over. The king has no objections to the content." Sichuan Emperor revealed a satisfied expression. "That's good. Then we can choose an auspicious day to sign this agreement, and it will come into effect immediately." This matter was finally settled. Everyone in the main hall was excited and happy. This way, the 2 countries would be able to maintain diplomatic relations for at least 100 years. The common people would no longer have to endure the pain of war, and the civil and military officials would be able to enjoy peaceful days. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone was immersed in joy. Only Xiao Su frowned. He thought that the contents of the agreement would be discussed several times, but he didn't expect the Southern Blue envoys to agree so easily. This made him feel uneasy. At this moment, Sichuan Emperor raised his hand to silence everyone. When everyone's eyes were focused on him, he turned to look at Pang Zhijing. "Princess, today is a great day for the 2 countries to establish diplomatic relations. Before you left, we heard from your imperial father that he wanted to choose a suitable husband for you. He also asked us to keep an eye out for you. We see that the princess is a woman with her own opinions. Why don't you take advantage of today? My men are all in the hall, so you can choose for yourself." Actually, everyone knew that there was an ulterior motive for holding this palace banquet. For example, at this moment, choosing a prince consort. This segment would come sooner or later. Although Pang Zhijing was mentally prepared, she was still a little nervous. She stood up slowly and welcomed everyone's probing gazes. She smiled and said, "Your Majesty, are you really letting Zhijing choose for herself? What if I don't choose well? Wouldn't it be a waste of your Majesty's good intentions?" If these words came from someone else's mouth, it would be a bit ungrateful and shameless. But when it came from Pang Zhijing, she had a foreign charm. Her words were frank and unpretentious. She gave people a kind of bright and lively temperament, which was very suitable. A monarch's words are not a joke. Sichuan Emperor stroked his beard and smiled majestically. Then it would be impolite for Zhijing to refuse. Pang Zhijing smiled proudly and did not refuse. She was like a queen, and below her were her royal subjects, allowing her to choose. Many people were envious of her power to be able to choose her ideal husband. Unfortunately, no one knew the torment she was suffering in her heart. Zhijing has never interacted with any of the noble children present. I have only heard of the 4 princes. The second prince has a carefree personality and does not care about women. Zhijing is afraid that I will fall in love with him. The 4th prince is about the same age as Zhijing, but Zhijing hopes to find a husband who is a few years older than Zhijing. His Royal Highness already has a fiancée, so Xijing will not snatch his beauty away. Xiaoho's smiling face instantly cracked. Did this brat know what she was saying? He had actually excluded his 3 royal brothers from the list. Before he could react, Pang Xijing dropped another bomb. So, in the end, Xijing feels that the third prince's temperament and appearance are all Fu Xijing standards. Xiaoho crushed the cup in his hand. Chapter 1161. The palace fell silent for a moment. The wine cup in the Sichuan emperor's hand tilted slightly, and the wine in the cup almost spilled out. Fortunately, Chao Ji, who was next to him, reminded him not to lose his composure. Chu Qingyan was also stunned because the result was very unexpected. She heard Xiao Yao's heavy sigh of relief. Although her big ice cube was not chosen, and her heart was relieved, she vaguely felt that something was wrong. Perhaps no one would have thought that Pang Xijing's choice would be Xiaoho. He was rumored to be a sick prince with no real power. After Pang Xijing finished speaking, she did not dare to look in the direction of Xiaoho. Instead, she straightened her neck and looked at the Sichuan emperor's position. Your Majesty, this is Xijing's choice. The group of envoys around her seemed to be shocked by her sudden change of choice. Torai anxiously whispered, Princess, what are you doing? Why is it different from what we planned? Words spoken are like spilled water. It can't be taken back. Pang Xijing did not directly answer his question, but revealed a strange smile. Since she decided to resist today, she would resist to the end. As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. She had no regrets. Since the princess had said so, it was useless for Tori and the others to be anxious. From this, it could be seen that the princess was out of control. They must convey today's matter to His Highness the Crown Prince as soon as possible. Pang Xijing's choice of Xiaoho surprised the Sichuan emperor, but for him, it did not make much of a difference. His original choice was Xiaoho, who was about the same status as Xiaoho. He had also considered Xiaoho before, but he was worried that Nansong Kingdom would not be satisfied with Xiaoho's body. Now that Pang Xijing had suggested it herself, it could not be better. The West Xian emperor laughed loudly and said, Princess has a keen eye. This son of mine has brilliant literary talent and is humorous and witty. He's someone who understands the cold and the heat. He's the best candidate for a son-in-law. Your Majesty is right. Although Hoer's mother is no longer by his side, this consort treats him like her own son. He is filial and courteous. He is a rare child. Princess has good taste. Empress Liang agreed. As long as the princess didn't choose Su today, it didn't matter who it was. Pang Xijing's pale face squeezed out a shy expression. After he finished speaking, Sichuan Emperor turned to look at Xiaoho, who had been silent all this time. His tone became more serious. Ho the princess favors you very much. What do you think of this marriage? At this time, everyone's eyes fell on the second, most important protagonist of this matter. It was Prince Xiaoho, who was sitting in the corner and didn't make a sound. No one would notice him. The Sichuan Emperor's question made Pang Xijing involuntarily clench the hem of her skirt. She didn't tell anyone about this decision. Presumably, it was a great blow to Xiaoho. She didn't know how he would respond. She began to worry. Would he refuse such a marriage? If he refused, then what should she do? Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, Xiaoho stood up unsteadily. Because he had been recuperating for many years, his body was weak. In everyone's eyes, he was too weak to stand up. His appearance made everyone even more suspicious of the princess's brain. There were so many outstanding princes out there, but she chose a sickly one instead. Xiao didn't care about other people's gazes. He stood in his seat with his head lowered and his eyes lowered. As usual, he stood aloof from worldly affairs. His voice was gentle, and there seemed to be a faint smile when he spoke. Thanks to the princess's love, I have no objection to this marriage. A few subordinates stood beside Xiaoho. When they heard that their master had agreed to this marriage, they were secretly anxious. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do. Only Xiaoho, who was standing in the hall, understood that once Pang Xijing said this, no matter what his wish was, he had no right to refuse. Because in the eyes of the emperor, as long as it wasn't Xiao Su or Xiao Ran, anyone could get married. Therefore, he was a pawn that the emperor could abandon at will. He was also a sacrifice in the struggle for the imperial power. The marriage bestowed upon him this time was a huge obstacle in his path to greatness. He turned slightly and looked at the person who hadn't looked at him since he agreed to this marriage. He didn't expect that she would be the one to checkmate him in the end. This little white rabbit who usually used the tiger's might to intimidate others. After the marriage was decided, everyone was happy. There were people who went over to congratulate them, and the scene became lively again. It was very lively on the surface, but no one knew how many disputes there were under the surface. Empress Liang was in a good mood as she said to everyone in the hall, "Tonight, this empress has also arranged for a program to admire the lotus flowers and lanterns. After this, there will be palace servants to lead the way. I hope that everyone will be able to enjoy themselves to the fullest tonight." After this arrangement was announced, joyful expressions appeared on the faces of the young boys and girls. They were all at an age where they wanted to have fun. Now that they could enjoy the scenery with so many people accompanying them, their excited hearts couldn't wait any longer. It was as if they had already flown to the lotus pond. Soon, palace servants holding lanterns appeared at the entrance of the hall. Those who wanted to stay to drink and eat could stay. Those who wanted to leave to admire the lotus flowers and lanterns could leave. In an instant, there were people coming and going. There were handsome men and beautiful women. Chu Qingyan was hesitating about what to do next when she saw Xiao Yao stand up. She couldn't help but ask, "You're also going to look at the lanterns? What's so good about lanterns? If I like, I can look at them every day." Xiao Yao waved his hand, not interested in them at all. "Then what are you doing?" she asked in confusion. Xiao Yao chuckled. "Of course I'm going to slip away. If it weren't for Imperial Father forcing me to come, I wouldn't have come. Since I don't have a part in the political marriage, what's the point of staying? If I don't leave now, when will I leave? Otherwise, if Imperial Father remembers me, I won't be able to leave. Before you leave, you should send someone to inform Imperial Father," Xiao Su reminded indifferently. Xiao Yao gave a light humph, but before he left, he lowered his voice and said with schadenfreude, "I think I saw that third Imperial brother was very unhappy. This is a bit like shooting yourself in the foot. I'm starting to think more highly of this princess." After he finished speaking, he didn't wait for anyone to react before he patted his sleeves and left. Chu Qingyan also noticed what Xiao Yao said, but she was more concerned about Pang Zhijing's behavior. Ever since the engagement was decided, Pang Zhijing had been silent. Even when she smiled, it was a bit forced. She really didn't know what happened after she left yesterday. "Qingyan, what are you sitting there for? Let's go look at the flowers together." Tang Lanhin pulled Jin Yuqing and waved at her from afar. Before Chu Qingyan could respond, they had already disappeared. She couldn't help pursing her lips into a smile. They really were a group of youthful girls. She also wanted to go out, but she felt that the big ice cube wouldn't like that kind of environment. Suddenly, the back of her hand was covered by a large, warm hand. She turned to look. "I'll take you to look at the lanterns," Xiao Su said in a calm and gentle voice. At this moment, she felt that the big ice cube was too tempting. She really wanted to throw herself at him. Chapter 1162. The two most important goals of the palace banquet had been achieved, so in the next segment, everyone could enjoy themselves to their heart's content. There was no need for them to anxiously watch what happened next. To Chu Qingyan, this was the first time Big Ice Cube had taken the initiative to invite her to play, and it was such a poetic matter. It was simply unprecedented. She could not refuse and did not even act reserved. She stood up along with him. Because their clothes were very long and it was dark, no one could see that the two of them were tightly holding each other's hands. But before she left, she still had some conscience and was concerned about her new friend. She told Big Ice Cube to wait outside the hall before she turned and walked towards Pang Zhijing. When she walked in front of Pang Zhijing, she realized that this person was actually daydreaming in such a chaotic place. She was puzzled, but did not say anything. She tilted her head and invited, May I ask this beautiful lady, are you interested in walking arm in arm with me? Chu Qingyin's voice startled Pang Zhijing. She raised her head and saw that it was her. The distant smile on her face immediately turned warm. It's you. There were so many people chattering here just now. It really affected the mood. Your arrival is like a clear stream in the muddy sea. What are you talking about? Be careful not to be overheard by others. Chu Qingyin reminded her softly with a stern face. But from her words and expression, it was hard to hide her fondness for her. She did not know why, but when she saw this young lady, she liked her from the bottom of her heart. Pang Zhijing chuckled and stood up. She casually tidied up the creases on her skirt and wanted to hold her hand. But she retracted her hand halfway and stuck out her tongue. Forget it. In this kind of place, it's better for us to keep our distance. I don't want to cause you trouble. Chu Qingyin shook her head and laughed. Pang Zhijing did not delay any longer and said a few words to the envoys. Although they did not approve of her being too close to Xiao Su and Chu Qingyin, in this kind of occasion, it was still necessary to maintain a good relationship on the surface. So they could only let Pang Zhijing follow Chu Qingyin. Why do I feel that as a princess, you have even less freedom than a subject? Chu Qingyin didn't miss the reluctance in Tori and the other's eyes as she asked in a low voice. Pang Zhijing shrugged and grumbled. That's right. Anyway, I'm just a victim of a political transaction. It's good enough that I can make a living. I don't want anything else. She could hear the self-deprecating tone in her words. As a member of the imperial family, the amount of power one enjoyed corresponded to the amount of responsibility one had to bear. There was no doubt about this. Chu Qingyin did not ask any more questions. The two of them walked to the entrance of the hall. Pang Zhijing caught a glimpse of a figure and suddenly laughed. I knew it. How could you leave your lord behind and ask me out on such a beautiful day? So it turns out that we're together. You made me think that I'm more important than your lord. Her voice wasn't soft, so both Xiao Su and Chu Qingyin heard it. Before the latter could say anything, the former glanced at her coldly, then turned to look at his little fellow with a slightly resentful gaze, as if complaining about why she brought such a big lantern. Chu Qingyin naturally understood the meaning of the big ice cube's gaze. She tugged at his sleeve and said in a low voice, You can't forget your friends when you're in love. I just saw her sitting there alone. She looked like she had lost her soul and was quite lonely. Xiao Su was silent for a while. Then he casually asked Pang Zhijing, Do you need this prince to help you call third brother? Pang Zhijing was just shamelessly teasing the two of them, but she didn't expect that Xiao Su would counter her the moment they met. She didn't even have the time to hide from Xiao Ho, so how could she dare to walk with him? She immediately waved her hand to refuse. No. He's not in good health, so it's better if he doesn't come out to catch the wind. Let's go. Don't block the traffic here. As she said that, Pang Zhijing immediately led her people to walk in front. When the two people behind her saw Pang Zhijing's behavior, they couldn't help but raise their brows. Why do I feel like the princess is a little afraid of third brother? When the two of them walked together, Chu Qingyin quietly asked the person beside her. Xiao Su said indifferently, It doesn't seem like it. Do you know the reason? She looked up and asked curiously. There's a problem with the cooperation. This princess showed off her courage in a moment of bravery and turned the tables on him at the palace banquet. Now that her courage has run out, she can only run away. Xiao Su easily deduced the cause and effect of everything that had happened at the banquet today, as if he had been a part of it. Chu Qingyin pursed her lips. Although it seems like this princess is on the same side as third prince, I still want to befriend her. Xiao Su knew what she was worried about and raised his brows. From the moment she betrayed him and chose her own husband, perhaps she's no longer on the same side. On the contrary, she should be afraid that Xiao Ho will take revenge on her. She was shocked. Then what should we do? The two of them happened to be walking in the dark. Xiao Su raised a hand to pinch her nose, his voice affectionate. That's not what you should be worried about right now. Since she has decided to take this path, she should have her own plans. She felt that the big ice cube was right. She wanted to say something, but was interrupted by him. Let's go. I'll take you to admire the flowers." After saying that, he held her fingers in his palm. She subconsciously looked up at him. His silver face was shining under the moonlight, hazy and cold. The cool night breeze passed through their fingertips, bringing with it a cool throbbing. She only felt as if her heart had melted into a pool of water. It turned out that when you're with the person you love, you don't have to do anything grand or beautiful. Just holding hands like this was a very romantic and warm thing. Pang Zhijing was having fun alone and was about to turn back to call them. But when she turned around, she saw the two people walking in the dark, leaning against each other. Although they didn't say anything, their eyes were full of words of love. The words that she wanted to call out were stuck in her throat. It was said that the King of England was incomparably cold. No one had ever been able to see any emotion other than indifference on his face. Actually, this was what outsiders thought, but they couldn't see it and speculated it. When such a proud son of heaven was gentle, it was simply not something that ordinary people could enjoy. She tilted her head and smiled lightly. Then she secretly turned around and slipped away. With such a beautiful scene, she didn't want to be a third wheel. In the palace, after Xiao Su left with Chu Qingyan, Xiao Ran, who was drinking alone at the side, looked at the backs of the two people and hesitated in his heart whether to follow them out. But when he thought of his mother's previous instructions to wait for orders, he suppressed his anxious mood and waited. While Xiao Ran was absent-minded, Jing Mingzhu, who was sitting opposite him, had been paying attention to him. She was thinking about how to invite him to go to the lanterns with her and shorten the distance between the two of them. And at this moment, a palace servant walked to Xiao Ran's side and whispered a few words. His eyes lit up, and he put down his wine cup and strode away. Jing Mingzhu saw this and immediately followed him out. Chapter 1163. In the palace, there was a long river that led to the outside of the palace. The water from small bridges, lotus ponds, and ponds all gathered here, so the lantern tour this time followed the long river. However, before the lantern tour, Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan first walked towards the lotus pond. Although they had already participated in a lotus viewing poetry gathering last time, when all was said and done, none of the lotuses in the capital could compare to the ones meticulously cultivated in the palace. Therefore, there were many people gathered here to admire the flowers. With so many people, they were worried that they would get separated. Most of the people here were young, and they did not have such a deep concept of official status. Children running and jumping could easily bump into people. Xiao Su brought her to his side and protected her as they walked. With him around, Chu Qingyan did not need to be distracted. She looked around and asked, "Where's Zhijing? How did she disappear in the blink of an eye?" She must have slipped away. When Pang Zhijing left, she had winked at him. It seemed that she was a discerning person. Xiao Su replied indifferently. As long as no one came to take up the little fellow's time, he did not care about anything else. Chu Qingyan sighed regretfully. "I wanted to talk to her, but forget it. She has a maid by her side, so I don't have to worry." As she spoke, she quickly threw the pity to the back of her mind. Hugging his arm, she tilted her head and asked brightly, "Then where are we going first?" She did not know that every time she showed this childish side of her, it moved him so much. Xiao Su's heart tightened. He reached out and covered the back of her hand. Taking a deep breath, he resisted the urge to take her to a corner and ravage her in his arms. He coughed lightly and looked away. Pointing casually, he said, "Let's go there." When he finished speaking, the person beside him exclaimed in surprise, "Big Ice Cube, you really walked into the human world today and caught fire." He was stunned and looked in the direction. When he saw clearly, he could not help but want to facepalm. The place he had hurriedly pointed to was actually the most crowded place in front of them. He really did not get close to such a lively atmosphere, and he did not like to interact with so many people. However, hearing the little fellow's excited tone, he did not feel that this accident was too much of a headache. Since she liked it, he would let her have her way. "I have always been in the human world, and you are my most beautiful fireworks." He didn't say the last sentence out loud. She smiled charmingly, and under his protection, she slowly walked towards the center of the crowd. Although Xiao Su didn't bring many people with him, the noble aura emanating from the two of them, as well as the cold and unyielding aura of the guards beside them, made people involuntarily make way for them. Some people were just like that. They didn't say a word. You only needed to look at them to know the difference between them and you. The best spot to admire the lotuses could no longer be squeezed, so Chu Qingyan pulled them to the bottom of the white jade bridge. Standing on the side, they passed through the crowd and gazed at the lotuses on the pond. Wow, this lotus has so many colors. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim. On the side closest to the pond, there were blue and purple lotus flowers, standing gracefully on the surface of the pond. That's a blue water lily. Then what's that over there? Xiao Su looked at her sparkling eyes and couldn't help but take on the role of an explanation. Then he pointed to the lotuses in front of them and said, "That's a yellow water lily. The white one is 100 flowers guanine lotus, and that's a needle powder of fine brocade." She was like a studious disciple. Every time she saw a new species, she couldn't help but ask for advice. Today, Xiao Su was especially patient. Not only did he talk about the species, but he also talked about the flowering period. Seeing her worshipful eyes, he felt a greater sense of accomplishment than winning a battle. After a round, she had already recognized most of the species on the big pond. This was all thanks to this omniscient master. "Big Ice Cube, how do you know everything?" "As far as I know, there's nothing you don't know." She was about to regard him as her idol, and the admiration in her eyes was obvious. Xiao Su rubbed his nose. Actually, he didn't know everything, but these were still within the scope of his knowledge. However, seeing the little fellow's girlish demeanor, he felt that it was not in vain for him to travel around the world for the past few years. However, Xiao Su didn't have the self-awareness that he had spent so many years studying and traveling only to have it become a skill to coax his wife. Instead, he was full of pride. "What else do you want to play?" Xiao Su asked with a faint smile. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan looked around. Finally, her gaze fixed on the river bank in the distance. She immediately jumped up and said, "Big Ice Cube, let's go light the lanterns." Xiao Su followed her gaze and looked over. There were bright lanterns and colorful flower cages floating on the water surface. It was very eye-catching. Thus, the group changed their position and moved forward. This time, the accompanying fierce cavalry suffered. How could they know that their master was so interested in coaxing his wife today? Not only did they have to protect their two masters from being offended, they also had to be careful of their surroundings and occupy the most advantageous position. It was simply torture. Not far from the riverbank, there was a small pavilion. There were eunuchs in charge of guarding it. There were various types of lanterns, as well as writing brushes, ink, paper, and inkstone for visitors to draw or inscribe on. "Big Ice Cube, I heard that if you write your wish in the lanterns, it will come true if you sincerely put it down." Chu Qingyan pulled him to the side of the pavilion and pointed at the rows of lanterns above with a smile. Xiao Su felt that this was just people placing their unfulfilled wishes in this way in order to feel at ease. However, if the little fellow wanted to play, he would accompany her to the end. The eunuch guarding the pavilion was a person with good eyesight. When he saw the two of them, he immediately greeted them and recommended the best lanterns. Chu Qingyan chose a fairy scattered flower lantern and a lion lantern for him. Then, she passed the brush and paper to him, urging him to quickly write. Xiao Su glanced at her and didn't refuse, so he took it. Seeing him being so cooperative, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. Then, she picked up the paper and began to write seriously. Under the glass lantern, the moonlight shone on her face. It made her little face as white as snow, delicate and beautiful. Xiao Su was a little dazed at that moment. The glass beauty stood there with her beautiful eyebrows lowered. "Okay, I'm done writing. What about you?" Chu Qingyan did not notice that the person beside her was in a daze. She blew at the ink on the paper and then waved her hand at him. Xiao Su finally came back to his senses and casually wrote on the paper. Soon, the paper was placed in the lantern. Xiao Su helped her carry the lantern. The two of them walked to the shore where there were fewer people. Then, like a young couple, they learned to put down the lantern. Xiao did not have much interest in this. He casually put it down as if he had completed a task. Then, he turned around to wait for her. At this time, he saw her put her hands on her chest and whispered something. Finally, she jumped towards him. Looking at her obedient appearance, Xiao suddenly remembered that for so many years, he had never felt tired of her. On the contrary, every day that they spent together, for him, was a gift of life. Just like the little fellow said, liking was a pleasure at first sight. Love was a long-lasting love. Chapter 1164. Is there something on my face? Chu Qingyan walked in front of him and looked at his focused gaze. She couldn't help but look up and ask with a smile. He suddenly wanted to get closer to the little fellow and touch her. As he thought this, he slowly raised his fingers with a strong consciousness. His fingertips curled slightly as he touched her cheek. Amidst her curiosity, Xiao couldn't help but lower his eyebrows and curve his lips. He really wanted to keep her by his side like this. Thinking that there really was something on her face, Chu Qingyan wiped it with her hand and smiled at him. Her expression became mischievous as she asked, "Big ice cube, what wish did you write?" Xiao retracted his hand and put it behind his back, replying, "Nothing." He had always fought for the things he wanted himself. He would not rely on these strange forces and gods. She naturally knew that the big ice cube was already very cooperative since he was willing to lower himself to play with this little girl's things. She didn't force him to be like those scholars and young masters. Otherwise, he wouldn't be him. Seeing her reluctantly look at the river, Xiao couldn't help but find it funny. "Then what did you write?" She opened her mouth and was about to blurt out the words, but stopped at the crucial moment. She deliberately kept him in suspense. This was the fun between lovers. "I'm not telling you now. I'll reveal the secret later." Xiao shook his head and laughed. She had always been full of energy. Jin, Xian, and Xining followed behind the two masters, keeping a certain distance so as not to disturb their space. At this time, Xining was holding a flower lantern in her hand. She clumsily tried to put the paper with the wish inside. Unfortunately, after a long time, she almost knocked the lantern over and still couldn't get it in. There were many little palace maids secretly laughing at her, and she blushed. Jin Xian couldn't stand it anymore. He reached out and took the lantern and paper. He glanced at it. The rabbit lantern was quite similar to hers. He didn't waste any time. He stuffed the paper in and handed it to her again. Just now, when he directly touched her, she was a little stunned. Now that the lantern was back in her hand, she finally reacted. Her face was hot. He probably thought that she was stupid again. She immediately lowered her head and rushed into the crowd. Squeezing her way to the riverside, she put down the lantern and looked at Jin Xian again. She felt that she was too ashamed to face anyone. Jin Xian didn't know where she got the strength to run so far. He frowned and followed her. People were coming and going, and it was easy to get separated. At this moment, he was surrounded by a few unfamiliar young ladies from official families. He thought that he was blocking the way and wanted to retreat to the side, but he didn't expect that these people were coming for him. "Lord Chu, why do you always walk with that servant girl? Why don't you come with us and enjoy the lotus flowers and lanterns?" One of the braver girls took a step forward and opened her mouth to invite Xining, but her tone revealed her contempt for Xining. Before Jin Xian entered the court and became an official, he didn't have surname. Later, before he left Chu Qingyan, she gave him a surname. From now on, he was a member of the Chu clan. Because he had the same surname as his master, Jin Xian's sense of belonging was even stronger, and he was even more loyal to her. Jin Xian had returned from the battlefield with meritorious service and stood out in court. He was young, promising, and talented. He had long become the ideal son-in-law that all families fought over. Furthermore, such a young man full of masculinity was not the same as the scholars and young masters in Jingdo who had been raised by literature. Many young girls in Jingdo began to pay close attention to him, which was why there were so many people trying to strike up a conversation with him. However, at this time, Jean Xin was a little impatient with these girls who were similar in age to Xining, but were not as tactful and cute as her. He didn't like to deal with these kind of girls, so after nodding slightly, he left to find the person who had just run away. Then, under the angry and unwilling gazes of the girls, he stood guard by Xining's side. I hope that Jean Xin can remember the past and find his family. Xining didn't know what had happened after she left. At this time, her hands were clasped in front of her chest as she softly muttered, "If they're lost, then they're lost. It's not like we can't find them." Just as she finished speaking and was about to turn around, she suddenly heard these words beside her. She jumped in fright, but when she saw that it was him, she sighed in relief. "You scared me to death. You didn't even make a sound when you walked. That's because you were too engrossed." Jean Xin retorted in his heart. Xining calmed down, then thought of something and asked, "Right, what did you say just now? You don't plan to find your family? That's all in the past. So what if we find them? Maybe they're already gone. The most important thing now is the present." Jean Xin said expressionlessly. Xining muttered, "How heartless." Jean Xin didn't refute. In his opinion, there was nothing better than his current life. There were people he wanted to protect, and people he wanted to protect. That was enough. The past was all dust and smoke. "Look at those two. They look like husband and wife." Chu Qingyin pointed at Jean Xin and Xining not far away, giggling. Xiao Su didn't comment. But why does Jean Xin's aura feel so familiar? Chu Qingyin raised her eyebrows and looked at her big ice block, sizing him up. As the saying goes, one is marked by the company one keeps. Jean Xin had been by Xiao Su's side for a long time, but in Chu Qingyin's opinion, he had learned most of her big ice block's unapproachable aura. Fortunately, Xining was around. Otherwise, she would have to worry if Jean Xin would be single for the rest of his life. Xiao Su felt goosebumps when she stared at him like that. He couldn't help but pinch her fingers. "What are you thinking about?" Chu Qingyin stopped smiling, then looked at the lantern that was gradually drifting away. She suddenly said, "Big ice block, I'll tell you what I wrote in the lantern, but you're not allowed to laugh at me." When she said that, he was even more curious. "Okay," she said slowly. "I wrote that I hope the world will be peaceful." Xiao Su was surprised and amused. This didn't seem like her style. "Why did you think of writing this?" He smiled, but he saw the seriousness in her eyes. He couldn't help but stop smiling. She looked at the picturesque face in front of her and said word by word seriously, "Because if the world is peaceful, there won't be any wars. If the world is peaceful, we won't have so many separations and bumps in the future. I want to ride the world with you and raise the whip in the martial arts world. That way, no one will disturb us and use any excuse to pull you into danger." These words made Xiao Su's heart tremble. So behind this lantern, there was such a longing hidden behind it. Perhaps it was because he had never given her a sense of security, so she had always been thinking about it. He couldn't help but reach out and pull her into his arms. His voice was solemn. "You will get what you want. If the heavens aren't willing to help you achieve it, I will personally help you create the prosperous and peaceful world that you want." This scene fell into the eyes of the person in the dark, and it caused ripples in her heart. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.